Hello and welcome to the Sleepy Scientist, a quiet space where the day can finally loosen and the night can begin to settle around you. As you get comfortable and let your mind slow down, tonight we will be exploring the science of human sleep and what your body and brain quietly do while you rest. Before we begin, it would be lovely to know where you're watching from. These calming videos travel to so many different places, and it is always comforting to imagine the peaceful rooms they reach. If you enjoy these gentle explorations and want to support the channel, a like and a subscribe help more than you might expect. And to those already subscribed, thank you so much for returning. Please consider tapping the notifications bell as well so you do not miss the next upload. And if this video turns out to be just a little too interesting and keeps you awake for a moment longer than planned, at least you might drift off having learned something new. As the night settles in, a simple question begins to rise. What is really happening inside you once sleep begins? Sleep may appear calm from the outside, but inside the body it becomes a steady sequence of events guided by timing, chemistry, and shifts in brain activity. Once your eyes close, internal signals begin adjusting the rhythm of your brain. Your muscles loosen, your breathing slows, and your body temperature gently falls as systems across the body move into their nighttime patterns. Memories from the day start to organize themselves, with important details becoming firmer while others fade. Emotional activity softens, allowing the intensity of waking life to ease. Hormones change their balance, supporting repair and restoring energy for the next day. Each stage of sleep plays a different role in keeping both body and mind steady. These stages repeat through the night with quiet reliability, shaping how you think, feel, and function when morning arrives. Tonight, we will look closely at how these changes unfold and what they reveal about the hidden work taking place each time you fall asleep. Sleep is one of the most familiar parts of life, yet when examined closely, it becomes far more intricate than it appears from the outside. From a scientific perspective, sleep is defined as a recurring, regulated and reversible state in which your awareness of the external world becomes lower. Your responsiveness decreases and your brain shifts into a different pattern of activity. The remarkable part is that this state does not cut you off from the world completely. Instead, it allows the body and mind to redirect energy inward, supporting processes that waking life cannot manage as effectively. You withdraw from your surroundings just enough to allow this inward work to begin, but you remain capable of returning to full alertness within a moment, which is one of the key features that separates sleep from other states that reduce consciousness. It is easy to mistake sleep for unconsciousness, but unconsciousness lacks the structure and rhythm that define sleep. During sleep, your brain moves through recognizable stages, each with its own electrical signature and purpose. Unconsciousness does not follow these patterns, nor does it allow the reversible shift between awareness and non-awareness that healthy sleep provides. Rest is also different, even though rest can feel similar from the outside. When you sit quietly or lie down awake, your sensory systems remain ready to respond. Your muscles may relax and your breathing may slow, but your brain continues to operate in a wakeful mode, tracking sounds, processing thoughts, and monitoring the world. Meditation is different again. It can reduce sensory engagement and it can shift brain rhythms in noticeable ways, but it keeps you anchored firmly within consciousness. Even in deep meditation, you can open your eyes instantly and return to your surroundings. Anesthesia, too, is distinct from sleep. It suppresses awareness by blocking communication between brain regions rather than by guiding them through the natural stages the brain has evolved to rely on. Sleep is unique because it follows an organized sequence that the body actively prepares for and moves through, cycle after cycle, every night. The question of how sleep is regulated leads to two major systems that work together quietly throughout the day. The first is the sleep-wake homeostat, which is often described as sleep pressure. From the moment you wake in the morning, a chemical called adenosine gradually builds up in the brain. As the hours pass, this accumulation creates a growing urge to sleep. When you eventually do fall asleep, this pressure decreases again. Sleep washes the adenosine away, easing the feeling of tiredness. This homeostat helps determine how long you can stay awake and how strongly your body signals that it is time to rest. Alongside this, the circadian rhythm acts as the internal timing system that keeps the body aligned with the cycle of night and day. This rhythm is governed by a small cluster of cells deep within the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. These cells help determine when you feel alert, when you feel sleepy, when your body temperature rises or falls, and when hormones shift to prepare you for waking or resting. Light plays a major role in guiding this internal clock. When daylight enters the eyes, even when the eyes are closed but the surroundings are bright, the brain receives a signal that helps reinforce wakefulness. As evening arrives and light fades, the internal clock encourages melatonin to rise, nudging the body toward rest. Melatonin is not a sedative. It is simply a signal that night has arrived, helping the circadian rhythm maintain its cycle. Together, the sleep pressure from the homeostat and the timing cues from the circadian rhythm shape the moment when sleep begins. Inside the brain, sleep is marked by shifting electrical patterns. When awake, the brain displays fast, irregular activity as it processes information, responds to the environment, and keeps track of thoughts. As you drift into light sleep, these fast patterns begin to slow, and certain types of waves appear that help protect the brain from waking too easily. In deep sleep, brain waves become large and slow, sweeping across the cortex in unison. This slow-wave activity represents one of the most distinctive features of sleep, and it allows the brain to enter a restorative state that waking life never achieves. Later in the night, the brain moves into rapid eye movement sleep, predominantly known as REM, a stage in which activity becomes faster and more variable again, resembling wakefulness in many ways. These switches between distinct types of electrical activity are not random. They unfold in cycles, each lasting around 90 minutes and each serving its own role within the night. Sleep is often assumed to be passive, but once the stages are viewed closely, the opposite becomes true. Sleep is one of the most active biological states the body enters. During the night, memory pathways are strengthened and stabilized. Hormonal signals shift to support repair, immune function and growth. Metabolic processes are adjusted, helping the body regulate energy more effectively. Emotional networks are given time to recalibrate, making it easier to handle stress and maintain balance the following day. The brain reorganizes itself, the body resets key systems, and together they prepare you for the next period of wakefulness. The universality of sleep across the animal kingdom reveals how deeply rooted this state is in biology. Almost all complex animals sleep or enter sleep-like states, from insects to mammals to birds. Even creatures with very different nervous systems show repeating cycles of lowered responsiveness, combined with internal activity that resembles sleep. Some species have evolved unusual adaptations to manage the risks that come with sleeping. Dolphins and certain birds can allow one half of the brain to sleep while the other half remains awake, a pattern known as unihemispheric sleep. This allows them to continue swimming, breathing consciously, or keeping watch for danger while still gaining some of the benefits of rest. Migratory birds can sleep in short bursts during flight, alternating which half of the brain remains alert. These adaptations show that sleep is so biologically essential that evolution has shaped countless different strategies to preserve it while still meeting the demands of survival. Although the exact reasons sleep became universal across species are still being explored, the consistency of this pattern suggests that the advantages of sleep outweigh the vulnerability it creates. A sleeping animal is less responsive to danger, yet evolution maintains sleep, which means that its benefits must be significant. The restoration of energy, the maintenance of brain function, the regulation of emotions, and the processing of information are likely to be central to why sleep has persisted across millions of years. With all of these features combined, sleep emerges as a highly organized, biologically driven state that the body depends on every night. It is not simply a pause in consciousness. It is an active, essential process involving nearly every system the body has. By understanding what sleep truly is, the deeper exploration of its stages and functions becomes easier to follow, revealing a nightly pattern that quietly shapes every day that follows. The moment you begin to feel tired in the evening is not random, nor is it simply the result of a long day. It is the outcome of a precise internal negotiation that takes place quietly inside the brain, guided by systems that measure time, track light, build pressure, and release chemical signals. Long before you consciously decide it is bedtime, your body has already begun preparing. Deep within the brain, a small cluster of cells works as the master clock that keeps the entire body aligned with the outside world. This group of cells is known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and despite its tiny size, it sets the rhythm for almost every internal process that follows a daily pattern. The suprachiasmatic nucleus sits just above where the optic nerves cross, placing it in the perfect position to receive information about light. When light enters the eyes, even in small amounts, it travels through specialized cells in the retina that do not contribute to vision, but instead act as sensors for brightness. These cells send signals along a pathway that leads directly to the master clock. When the suprachiasmatic nucleus receives these signals, it uses them to keep the internal rhythm in sync with the outside cycle of day and night. This is why exposure to bright light in the morning helps reinforce wakefulness, and why bright screens late at night can shift the internal clock and make sleep feel further away than it should. As daylight fades, the master clock gradually begins signaling other parts of the brain and body to prepare for night. One of the responses to this signal is the release of melatonin from the pineal gland. Melatonin often gets misunderstood as a chemical that causes sleep, but its real purpose is more subtle. It works as a timing cue, a kind of internal message that says the world outside is dark now and it is time to transition toward rest. Rather than pushing you into sleep, it lets the rest of the body know that night has arrived. When melatonin levels rise naturally in the evening, the body's systems begin shifting into night mode. This includes minor drops in body temperature, changes in blood pressure, and a general softening of the alertness signals that keep you awake during the day. Alongside these timing cues, the body maintains a separate system that measures how long you've been awake. This is known as sleep pressure, and it is driven mainly by the chemical adenosine. From the moment you wake in the morning, adenosine begins to accumulate in the brain. As the hours pass, its levels rise steadily. This creates a growing urge to sleep that becomes more noticeable later in the day. When you finally do fall asleep, the amount of adenosine gradually decreases, which is why waking after a long rest feels refreshing. Sleep pressure acts like a biological measure of how much rest you need, and it works independently of the circadian rhythm. The balance between sleep pressure and the circadian rhythm is often described using what scientists call the two-process model of sleep. One process measures time spent awake and builds pressure. The other measures external time through light cues and determines when the body expects sleep. When both processes align, the sensation of tiredness becomes stronger and falling asleep becomes easy. If they do not align, such as when someone tries to sleep far earlier than usual or stays awake much later than their body expects, sleep can feel harder to reach even when the need is strong. This is why taking a long nap late in the day can make it difficult to fall asleep at night. The nap lowers sleep pressure, but the internal clock remains set to a later time. Another important cue in this nightly preparation is body temperature. Throughout the day, your core temperature rises and falls in a predictable pattern, controlled by the internal clock. In the late afternoon, temperature tends to be at its highest. As the evening approaches, it gradually begins to drop. This cooling continues into the night and helps signal that the body is preparing for sleep. The lowering of temperature is not random. It helps create the conditions that make falling asleep easier. A slightly cooler environment or a warm bath before bed can help this process along by creating the same downward shift in temperature. The body prefers to release heat through the hands and feet, and when this release begins, sleep often follows naturally. The internal rhythm that guides all of these changes is not fixed across life. Adolescence brings one of the most noticeable shifts. During teenage years, the circadian rhythm naturally moves later. This means teenagers often feel most alert in the evening and struggle to become fully awake early in the morning. This shift happens regardless of lifestyle or preference, and is caused by changes in how the master clock responds to light cues. It is a built-in part of development, much like growth spurts or changes in appetite. Forcing an earlier bedtime during this stage often conflicts with the body's natural timing, making sleep difficult even when tiredness is present. As people age, the circadian rhythm tends to shift earlier again. Many older adults find that they become sleepy earlier in the evening and wake earlier in the morning. This change is partly due to alterations in the sensitivity of the master clock, and partly due to reduced exposure to bright light during the day. The strength of melatonin signals can also lessen with age, making the transition from wakefulness to sleep feel less pronounced. These changes do not reflect a loss of sleep ability, but rather an adjustment in timing. When all of these signals work together, sleep begins smoothly. The master clock lowers alertness as darkness arrives. Melatonin rises to confirm that night has begun. Adenosine builds to a point where the pressure to sleep becomes hard to ignore. Body temperature drifts downward. All of these changes converge to guide the body into a state where falling asleep becomes natural. Each part plays its own role. The clock tells you when. The pressure tells you how strongly. The body temperature sets the conditions. Melatonin marks the transition. Together, they determine the moment sleep begins. This nightly negotiation happens quietly and reliably, shaping the rhythm of every day and every night. Even though it unfolds without conscious awareness, it represents one of the most coordinated processes the body performs. When the internal clock aligns with the world outside and with the rhythm of your own life, sleep feels effortless. And when those signals become mismatched, sleep can feel just out of reach. Understanding how these systems work makes it easier to appreciate the subtle timing that allows the body to recognize night, release the day, and begin the steady descent into rest. The moment you begin to fall asleep is not a clean switch from wakefulness to rest. It is a gradual slide, a narrowing of awareness where thoughts loosen, sensations soften, and the outside world begins to fade at the edges. This stage, often called Stage 1 sleep, is the lightest part of the entire night. It lasts only a short time, yet it marks the true threshold between being awake and entering the structured landscape of sleep. Even though it is brief, it contains some of the most recognizable and relatable moments of the night. Drifting thoughts, sudden twitches, bursts of imagery, and that peculiar floating feeling where you're not entirely awake, but not quite asleep either. One of the earliest signs that the body's entering this stage is the change in how your thoughts behave. During wakefulness, thinking tends to be deliberate, guided, and structured. You can follow a line of reasoning or shift between subject with intention. As Stage 1 approaches, that structure begins to loosen. Thoughts that were sharp a moment ago become softer, blending into one another. The mind begins to drift into a kind of free association. A memory might appear without warning, followed by a random image, followed by something that makes no sense at all. Many people only notice this shift when they suddenly realize they have lost the thread of what they were thinking about. It can feel as though the mind has quietly slipped its grip on the day. Alongside this drifting of thought, small visual flashes may appear in the early moments of sleep. These are known as hypnagogic images. They're not dreams in the full sense, but brief, scattered impressions that arise as the brain shifts into a different mode of activity. These flashes can be as simple as shapes or colours, or as detailed as momentary scenes that vanish the instant you try to grasp them. They often feel strangely vivid despite lasting only a second. The brain is beginning to change how it processes visual information, moving from deliberate visualization into a more spontaneous style that will later develop into dreams. The body also begins to show signs of the transition. One of the most common and surprising sensations is the sudden twitch or jerk that can occur as you drift off. This involuntary movement, known as a hypnic jerk, often feels strong enough to jolt you back toward wakefulness. Many people experience it as the sensation of falling, which can be startling even though the body is lying still. These jerks happen because different parts of the brain are adjusting their activity levels at slightly different speeds. As the system that controls muscle tone relaxes, some muscles may fire unexpectedly, creating a brief twitch. The brain then interprets this abrupt movement as a loss of balance, which is why the sensation of falling often accompanies it. Though harmless, it can certainly catch you off guard. At the same time, your senses begin to withdraw from the outside world. When awake, your brain constantly filters information from sound, touch, sight, and internal signals. During the transition to sleep, this filtering shifts. Sounds may still register, but they no longer hold your attention. A distant noise becomes softer and less meaningful. Visual perception slips away, even if your eyes are closed, because the brain stops trying to interpret the faint patterns created by darkness. Touch becomes background information rather than something you actively notice. Even the awareness of your own body can begin to fade, creating a sense of lightness or floating. This is not a trick of the mind, but a genuine change in how sensory input is processed. As this reduction in sensory engagement continues, the brain's electrical activity also shifts. When fully awake, the brain produces fast, irregular patterns associated with thinking, moving, and responding to the world. As Stage 1 arrives, these patterns slow down. The waves become more unified, less scattered. Instead of rapid bursts of activity, the brain begins producing slower rhythms that signal the transition toward deeper rest. This shift does not happen instantly. The brain may drift back and forth between wake-like patterns and the slower rhythms of early sleep. This back and forth contributes to the fragile nature of the stage. You may feel as though you are falling asleep, only to realize moments later that you are still awake. Or you may believe you were awake the entire time, even though you briefly slipped into sleep without noticing. This fragile boundary can create unusual experiences. Sometimes a sound blends with the dreamlike image, forming something that feels half imagined. Sometimes you may hear your name as if spoken in the distance, even when the room is silent. These experiences reflect the brain's shifting balance between internal and external processing. As wakefulness loosens, the brain begins to rely more on internal activity, allowing spontaneous imagery and sensations to arise. But because the transition is not yet complete, the real world continues to influence these impressions. This blending rarely occurs later in sleep, when the separation between waking and dreaming becomes more distinct. Even the perception of time can begin to change. A few seconds may feel longer or shorter than usual. A brief moment of drifting thought may seem like several minutes. This altered sense of time arises because the brain regions responsible for tracking external events are no longer receiving clear input. Without the usual flow of sensory information, the brain's internal clock becomes less anchored. It no longer measures time by external cues but by the internal rhythm of thought, which is slowing and becoming less predictable. One of the defining features of this stage is the ease with which it can be interrupted. A soft noise, a shift in posture, or even a small change in your breathing can pull you back toward wakefulness. This fragility is part of why many people have trouble recognizing when they first fall asleep. If the body returns to alertness quickly, it may feel as though sleep never truly arrived. Yet these brief dips into stage 1 are a normal part of the night. They can occur multiple times before the body fully settles into deeper stages. On nights when your mind feels busy or your body feels restless, you may hover in this stage for longer, as the systems responsible for sleep take extra time to coordinate. Despite being the lightest stage of sleep, this moment is important. It marks the release of conscious control. The mind stops actively guiding itself. The body releases its hold on alertness. The brain begins shifting to the internal rhythms that will carry you through the rest of the night. These early adjustments prepare the system for deeper, more restorative stages. Without this transition, the brain would have difficulty moving into the slow-wave patterns that support physical recovery, or the vivid activity of dream stages that help process emotion and memory. Even though stage 1 is fleeting, lasting only a short while for most people, it gives a glimpse into the shifting relationship between wakefulness and sleep. It is a moment where awareness is still present but fading, where thought becomes less structured, and where the boundary between the external world and the inner world grows thinner. It is a moment people experience every night, even if they rarely notice it. Once the brain completes this initial shift, it becomes easier to enter the stabilizing rhythms of deeper rest. Understanding this stage also helps explain why falling asleep can sometimes feel unpredictable. Because the transition involves such delicate changes, it can be disrupted by stress, by noise, by irregular schedules, or simply by an overactive mind. Recognizing that the process is gradual rather than instant can make it easier to appreciate the subtlety of how sleep begins. The drifting thoughts, the soft flashes of imagery, the sudden twitch of a muscle, and the floating sense of awareness fading in and out are all signs that the body is doing exactly what it is meant to do. It is stepping quietly over the threshold, leaving the day behind and beginning the long restorative journey through the night. Stage 2. Sleep is the point in the night where the body begins to settle into a more stable rhythm, moving beyond the fragile threshold of drifting thoughts and sudden twitches. Once this stage begins, the transition into sleep becomes far more secure. Awareness of the outside world continues to fade, but not in the sudden way it does during dreams or deep sleep. Instead, it happens gradually, as if a soft curtain is being lowered across the senses. The body becomes more peaceful, the brain shifts into a new pattern of activity, and sleep finally gains enough stability to hold itself without slipping backward into wakefulness. One of the defining features of this stage is the presence of sleep spindles. These are brief bursts of brain activity that appear on the surface as quick, concentrated pulses. Even though they last only a second, they play an important role in shielding sleep from disruption. During wakefulness, the brain remains alert to changes in sound, light, or movement. But during stage 2, sleep spindles help limit the amount of sensory information that reaches deeper parts of the brain. They act almost like small interruptions, giving sleep a chance to continue even if the environment is not perfectly quiet. If a noise outside the window or a shift in bedding occurs, these spindles help prevent those disturbances from pulling you back into full awareness. Along with spindles, this stage also includes K-complexes. These are large, slow waves that appear suddenly, often in response to something happening around you. When a sound or sensation is detected, the brain generates a K-complex as a way of evaluating whether the disturbance requires waking up. In many cases, the brain decides the noise is harmless, so the K-complex simply helps keep the sleeper in place. At other times, such as when something unexpected occurs, it may contribute to waking the body. This dual purpose makes K-complexes one of the brain's tools for balancing rest and safety. They allow the brain to remain loosely connected to the world without fully re-engaging with it. As the brain begins to produce these distinctive patterns, the rest of the body undergoes changes that support the shift into deeper rest. Breathing becomes more regular. During wakefulness, breathing can vary depending on emotion, posture, or activity. But in stage 2, the rhythm becomes smoother and more predictable. This is partly due to changes in the nervous system. The part responsible for calming the body becomes more active, helping reduce the influence of stress-related signals. Heart rate begins to slow, and the body's overall energy use decreases. These changes work together to create a stable environment in which the brain can continue its journey toward deeper stages of sleep. Another significant change is the reduction in muscle activity. While muscles do not become fully relaxed at this point, they do grow quieter. Reflexes become slower, and the body enters a more restful posture. Even small movements become less frequent. This reduction in muscle activity helps conserve energy and reduces the chance of waking due to physical restlessness. Although the body still retains some ability to respond if necessary, it no longer reacts as quickly or strongly as it does during wakefulness. Because the nervous system is shifting into a calmer state, sensory processing continues to decrease. The brain becomes less responsive to faint sounds and slight movements. If something happens around you, such as a quiet conversation in the distance or a soft creak in the house, the brain registers it but does not necessarily react. The filtering of sensory information becomes more efficient. It is not that the world becomes quieter. It is that the brain chooses to ignore most of what it hears and feels. This selective filtering is essential because it helps sleep last longer and prevents the constant pull of external information from interrupting the process. As the senses withdraw and the brain enters this new pattern of activity, the stage becomes a kind of holding place. It is not as deep as the stages that follow, but it is far more stable than the brief, drifting moments that begin the night. Many people do not remember this part of sleep at all, because it lacks the vivid imagery of dreaming or the profound stillness of deep sleep. Yet it plays a crucial role in allowing both of those later stages to unfold without interruption. It acts as the body's way of securing its place in the night. Another reason this stage is important is that it helps prepare the brain for memory processing. Sleep spindles have been linked to the strengthening of certain types of memory. When you learn something new during the day, the brain begins to stabilize that information during the night. Spindles appear more frequently after periods of learning, suggesting that the brain uses this stage as a moment to begin sorting through information. This is one of the early steps in the long process of memory consolidation that continues throughout the night. Even though stage 2 is not the deepest or most vivid part of sleep, it actually occupies more time than any other stage. Across a full night, the average person spends almost half of their sleep in this state. This might seem surprising since it is not the stage most associated with restoration or dreaming. But its stability makes it invaluable. It acts as a bridge between wakefulness and the deeper stages. Without this transition, the brain would struggle to maintain sleep long enough to gain the benefits of the stages that follow. It helps create predictable cycles, ensuring that each stage has the right conditions to appear at the right time. The length of this stage varies depending on the time of night. In the early cycles, it may last only a few minutes before the brain moves on. Later in the night, it can become longer, helping smooth the return from deep sleep and preparing the brain for dream-heavy periods. This flexibility allows the body to adjust its rhythm based on how much rest has already been achieved. By balancing light sleep with deeper stages, the brain ensures that all aspects of restoration can occur. As the stage continues, the sense of time becomes even more difficult to track. Because sensory processing is reduced and the brain's activity is slowed, moments can feel stretched or compressed. Many people feel as though they've only just fallen asleep when waking briefly from this stage. Others may feel as though an hour has passed when only a few minutes have gone by. This distortion is normal and reflects the shifting balance between internal and external awareness. Despite its stability, the stage is still light enough that waking is possible if something significant happens. A loud noise or a sudden movement can pull the body back to awareness. But compared to the fragile boundary of the initial transition, awakening is less likely. The protective influence of spindles and K-complexes helps keep the body in place unless something genuinely requires attention. This balance makes the stage feel both secure and adaptable. Even though this part of the night does not stand out in memory, it holds the night together. It is during this time that the body finds its rhythm, the senses withdraw, and the brain begins to shift into the patterns that allow deeper rest to emerge. Without this stabilizing phase, the night would be far more fragmented. Sleep would be interrupted more easily. Memory processing would be less efficient, and the delicate balance of brain activity that guides the rest of the night would struggle to form. Light sleep may not feel dramatic, but it provides the foundation for everything that follows. By creating a safe, stable, and quiet environment within the body, it prepares the mind for the stages that restore, repair, and explore. It marks the moment when the night truly begins to take hold, guiding the body gently toward deeper rest. The transition from light sleep into deep sleep marks one of the most dramatic shifts the body experiences during the night, even though it unfolds quietly and without awareness. After drifting through the softer rhythms of light sleep, the brain begins preparing itself for a state of stillness that goes far beyond anything felt earlier in the night. This descent into slow-wave sleep is not a single moment, but a gradual deepening, a slow surrender of responsiveness as the brain settles into one of its most essential modes of operation. During this stage, the outside world fades even further, and the body enters a condition built for restoration, repair, and long-term balance. As the brain approaches deep sleep, its electrical activity changes in a noticeable and measurable way. During wakefulness, brain waves are fast, irregular, and varied, reflecting the constant flow of thoughts, sensations, and reactions. During light sleep, the waves slow, but they remain mixed with bursts of activity that help protect sleep and begin memory processing. When deep sleep begins, however, the brain shifts into large, slow, synchronized waves known as delta activity. These waves rise and fall in unison across wide areas of the brain. Rather than a rapid exchange of information between different regions, the brain enters a coordinated rhythm that supports a type of rest that waking life cannot provide. These slow waves represent a level of internal calm that is difficult to describe in any waking analogy. The brain is not inactive, but it has changed its mode entirely. Communication between regions becomes more unified. Cortical neurons fire together in long, regular cycles. This synchrony allows cells to recover from the metabolic demands of the day. It also provides the brain with an opportunity to strengthen important connections and remove weaker ones. In a sense, deep sleep acts like a master reset, clearing noise from the system and preparing networks for the next day. Because brain activity becomes so slow and stable, waking from this stage can feel disorienting. Many people experience a sense of heaviness or confusion when pulled suddenly from deep sleep. This phenomenon, sometimes called sleep inertia, occurs because the brain is being forced to speed up its activity far more quickly than it would naturally. Moving from slow synchronized waves into alert, rapid firing is not immediate. It takes time for the internal systems to adjust. When this transition is rushed, reaction time, memory, and decision-making can all feel temporarily impaired. This is why waking during this stage is difficult, and why alarms that interrupt deep sleep can feel particularly jarring. Within the body, deep sleep brings a profound reduction in muscle tone. Muscles become relaxed to the point where movement slows dramatically. Posture remains steady, and large movements become rare. The body still retains the ability to shift if needed, but those adjustments happen with less frequency. Reflexes weaken because the nervous system is focusing on internal stability rather than preparing for quick responses. This reduction in activity is not simply a side effect of sleep. It helps conserve energy and supports the restorative processes that rely on calm, steady conditions. Reaction to external stimuli also becomes much lower in this stage. Sounds that would rouse someone from light sleep often go unnoticed during deep sleep. A car passing outside, a distant voice, or a small movement in the room may register faintly, but not strongly enough to disrupt the state. This low responsiveness is partly why deep sleep is so restorative. If the brain and body were still maintaining high alertness, they would not be able to perform the restorative tasks that require prolonged, uninterrupted calm. The metabolic rate drops noticeably during this period. Heart rate reaches some of its lowest levels of the night. Breathing becomes deep and steady. Blood pressure decreases. the body diverts resources to repair tissues, strengthen the immune system, and balance hormone levels. This metabolic slowdown does not mean the body is inactive. Instead, energy is being redirected to essential maintenance work. Growth-supporting hormones rise, helping with tissue recovery, muscle repair, and cellular regeneration. These hormonal changes also play a role in supporting bone strength, immune function, and long-term health. One of the most remarkable features of deep sleep is the amount of physical repair that takes place. Cells clear out waste products that accumulate during the day. The immune system becomes more active in identifying and addressing potential threats. Proteins are synthesized at higher rates, supporting muscle growth and recovery. Even the skin benefits from this internal work, as collagen production increases and renewal processes become more efficient. Without deep sleep, many of these functions would be weakened or delayed, leading to longer recovery times and increased vulnerability to stress and illness. Deep sleep also helps stabilize physiological systems that rely on nightly recalibration. Blood sugar levels are regulated more effectively when this stage is sufficient. The cardiovascular system receives a break from the demands of daily activity. Stress hormones decline, giving the body a chance to reset its baseline levels. In many ways, deep sleep acts like a quiet nightly inspection, ensuring that major systems are functioning within healthy ranges and restoring balance where needed. Because of these essential processes, the amount of deep sleep a person receives can have long-term effects on overall health. Younger individuals tend to spend more time in this stage, supporting growth and development. As people age, deep sleep gradually becomes lighter and shorter, although it remains important. Factors such as stress, irregular schedules, chronic pain, and medical conditions can reduce the time spent in deep sleep. When this happens consistently, the body misses out on some of the restorative work that helps maintain physical resilience. Over long periods, insufficient deep sleep can influence mood, immune strength, metabolism, and cognitive clarity. The descent into this stage also plays a role in memory, although not in the same way as later stages. During deep sleep, the brain begins the early steps of consolidating certain types of memory, especially those related to physical skills and spatial awareness. It helps strengthen patterns that were formed during the day, improving performance and retention. Although the most vivid dream-related memory processing happens later in the night, deep sleep lays the groundwork for those experiences by clearing away unneeded information and preparing networks for the next cycle. Another subtle but important aspect of deep sleep is the stability it brings to the overall architecture of the night. After passing through this stage, the brain can move more easily into the cycles that follow. Without a sufficient period of deep rest, the pattern of sleep can become fragmented. This fragmentation can reduce the benefits of later stages and make sleep feel less refreshing, even when total time in bed is long. The descent into stillness does not draw attention to itself. There are no vivid images, no sudden shifts, no narrative. The mind becomes quieter, the body becomes heavier, and awareness slips away almost completely. If someone were to look in from the outside, they would see a person lying peacefully, unmoving and unaware. But inside, a great deal is happening. The brain is resetting its activity, the body is repairing itself, and essential systems are recalibrating in ways that waking life cannot accomplish. Deep sleep is one of the most important contributors to well-being, yet it is also one of the least consciously experienced. No memories are formed during this stage. No sense of time remains. Its benefits are felt only later, upon waking, in the form of steadier mood, clearer thinking, and a body that feels restored. Even though it leaves no trace in memory, deep sleep shapes each day, providing the foundation for resilience, health, and balance. As the night continues, this stage will arrive again, repeating in cycles. Each return to deep sleep allows the body to recapture more of the physical restoration it requires. The descent into stillness may be silent and unnoticed, but it is one of the most powerful states your body enters, guiding health and supporting life in ways that unfold every night without conscious awareness. Slow-wave sleep is the deepest form of rest the brain enters, and it serves as the body's primary workshop for repair and renewal. After the descent into deep sleep begins, the brain transitions into long, sweeping waves of activity that move in slow cycles. During this stage, every major system of the body shifts into a mode designed to restore, replenish, and protect. It is quiet, it is steady, and it is absolutely essential. Even though you have no awareness of these moments and no memory of them later, the work that unfolds during slow-wave sleep shapes how healthy, resilient, and stable you feel when you wake. One of the defining characteristics of this stage is the release of certain hormones that support growth and repair. These hormones are not limited to childhood. Adults rely on them just as much, especially for tissue recovery, muscle repair, and metabolic balance. Growth hormone is one of the key players. It is released in its largest pulses during slow-wave sleep, helping the body mend small injuries, repair muscle fibers strained throughout the day, and regulate the turnover of cells in organs and tissues. This is one of the reasons why people who are physically active depend so heavily on deep sleep. Without these hormonal surges, recovery becomes slower and less efficient. Alongside growth hormone, other repair-focused hormones also reach their peak levels during this stage. Proteins are built at a faster rate, which supports healing and replenishes cells that have been under strain. These processes happen continuously during wakefulness, but deep sleep accelerates them dramatically. It is as though the body uses this stage to catch up on essential maintenance that cannot be completed while the brain is busy with the demands of the day. The calm, stable environment of slow-wave sleep creates the perfect conditions for these hormones to work. One of the most remarkable systems that becomes active during this stage is the glymphatic system, a network that helps clear metabolic waste from the brain. During the day, the brain generates byproducts from constant activity. These waste materials accumulate between cells and need to be removed to keep the brain functioning well. During slow-wave sleep, cerebrospinal fluid begins to wash through the spaces between brain cells, flushing away waste products and carrying them into the bloodstream for removal. This process helps clear substances that, if allowed to build up, could interfere with cognitive function. The brain essentially performs its own form of housekeeping during this stage, tidying the internal environment in preparation for the next day. The discovery of the glymphatic system highlighted just how crucial slow-wave sleep is for maintaining long-term brain health. This flushing mechanism does not operate as efficiently during wakefulness. The brain is too busy processing information, responding to stimuli, and regulating the body. Only during the deep, synchronized waves of slow-wave sleep do the cells shrink slightly, allowing more room for the cerebrospinal fluid to circulate. It is a remarkable example of the precision with which the body has evolved to balance activity and rest. Immune function also strengthens significantly during slow-wave sleep. The immune system relies on this stage to release certain signaling molecules that help coordinate the body's defense responses. These molecules assist immune cells in identifying and responding to potential threats. They also support the creation of memory cells that help the body recognize previous invaders. This is part of the reason why people often feel more tired when sick. The body attempts to increase the amount of deep sleep in order to boost immune activity. Slow-wave sleep acts as a supportive partner to the immune system, ensuring that it has the resources and conditions necessary to work effectively. One interesting feature of slow-wave sleep is that it tends to be more abundant earlier in the night. During the first few sleep cycles, the body spends more time in this deep stage. As the night progresses, slow-wave sleep naturally becomes shorter and lighter stages take its place. This distribution is linked to sleep pressure. When you've been awake for many hours, the need for deep restoration is high, so the brain prioritizes slow-wave sleep at the beginning of the night. As the pressure decreases, the brain shifts focus toward other tasks that occur later in the sleep cycle, such as memory integration and emotional processing. The timing of slow-wave sleep is not random. It reflects a carefully organized schedule that maximizes the benefits of the night. During this stage, heart rate and blood pressure reach some of their most stable and lowest levels. The cardiovascular system uses this time to reduce strain and restore balance. Blood vessels relax, circulation becomes more efficient, and the heart can rest from the constant adjustments required during wakefulness. These nightly moments of reduced pressure play a significant role in maintaining long-term cardiovascular health. People who consistently receive insufficient deep sleep often show higher risks for conditions related to blood pressure and heart function, highlighting just how important this steady state is. Metabolic processes also shift into a more balanced mode during slow-wave sleep. Insulin sensitivity improves, helping regulate blood sugar levels. Hormones that influence appetite become more stable. Energy use slows down, allowing the body to store nutrients, repair tissues, and prepare for the next day's demands. When this stage is disrupted or shortened, the effects can appear in subtle ways, such as increased hunger, lower energy, or difficulty regulating blood sugar. Over time, these effects can accumulate, influencing overall health. The muscles benefit greatly from this stage as well. With movement reduced and muscle tone lowered, the body can focus on repairing small tears and rebuilding strength. Athletes and people who engage in physical labor often rely heavily on slow-wave sleep for recovery. But even for those who do not strain their bodies during the day, this repair work is vital. Everyday activities cause tiny amounts of wear and tear on muscles, joints, and tissues. Slow-wave sleep ensures that these small disruptions are repaired consistently, maintaining long-term mobility and comfort. One of the subtle but important aspects of slow-wave sleep is how it contributes to emotional balance. Although the most vivid emotional processing happens during dream-heavy stages later in the night, the foundation for this work is laid during slow-wave sleep. The stability of the brain during this phase helps reset the emotional centers, reducing sensitivity to stress and preparing the mind to handle challenges. People who experience deep sleep regularly often find it easier to regulate emotions and maintain equilibrium during the day. Because so many essential processes depend on slow-wave sleep, disruptions to this stage can have noticeable effects. Stress, irregular schedules, noise, and certain substances can reduce the amount of deep sleep a person receives. When this happens frequently, the body misses out on key opportunities for repair and maintenance. Over time, this can lead to less physical resilience, weaker immune responses, and greater difficulty managing stress. Even though people may not remember how much deep sleep they experience, the body keeps track through how it feels each morning. Slow-wave sleep also supports the longevity of brain cells. The reduced metabolic demand and the efficient removal of waste help protect neurons from long-term damage. The brain works hard during the day, and without this nightly opportunity to reset, it can become overloaded. Slow-wave sleep ensures that cognitive function remains sharp, memory remains reliable, and concentration stays steady. It is one of the most effective preventative processes the body has, operating silently every night to maintain brain health. This stage of sleep offers a kind of stillness that is both profound and purposeful. Even though the body appears motionless and the mind produces no narrative, the internal activity is among the most vital for survival. Hormones rise and fall, fluid circulates, cells repair, the immune system strengthens, and energy stores reset. Because slow-wave sleep occurs mostly early in the night, it allows the rest of the night to focus on different tasks while ensuring that the most physically restorative work has already been completed. Slow-wave sleep may not be remembered, but its effects shape every waking moment. It provides the strength to recover from physical strain, the clarity to think and solve problems, and the stability to face the challenges of each day. Without it, the body would gradually lose resilience, and the brain would struggle to maintain balance. This stage acts as the foundation of nightly restoration, offering the steady, quiet work that keeps the entire system functioning smoothly. As the body completes its first descent into deep sleep, the brain begins a gradual return toward lighter stages. The shift is not abrupt. Instead, it unfolds in gentle steps, as though the mind is rising slowly through layers of stillness. This upward movement marks the completion of the first sleep cycle, and it prepares the brain for a completely different style of activity. The deep, heavy waves of slow sleep begin to lose their hold, and a quieter, more flexible rhythm takes their place. It is the beginning of a transition from physical restoration toward the emotional and imaginative world that arrives later in the night. During deep sleep, the brain's electrical activity settles into synchronized slow waves. As the cycle reaches its end, those waves start to break apart. They become smaller, faster, and more varied. Communication between brain regions begins to increase again. Neurons that were firing in long, unified patterns begin operating with more independence. This shift marks the moment the brain starts preparing itself for new types of processing. The clarity and simplicity of deep sleep gives way to a livelier internal environment, even though the person sleeping remains unaware of the change. Although the brain is becoming more active, the transition is not complete. Thoughts have not yet returned, dreams have not yet fully formed, and awareness remains distant. The brain is in a state that sits between heavy restoration and the beginnings of mental exploration. It is almost like the mind is taking a breath, loosening its grip on the deep silence below and beginning to reconnect the circuits involved in emotion, memory, and sensory experience. This reconnection creates the conditions necessary for dreaming, but does not initiate it yet. Muscle tone stays low throughout this period. The body remains heavy and relaxed, and large movements are uncommon. Even though the brain is waking slightly within the sleep cycle, the nervous system continues to favor stillness. Reflexes remain slower than during wakefulness, and muscle tension stays reduced. This contrast between rising brain activity and steady physical calm sets the stage for the next part of the night. For dreaming to unfold safely, the body must remain still while the mind becomes more active. That balance begins to form here, in the soft rise toward lighter sleep. As the rhythm of the cycle moves upward, breathing becomes slightly less steady than in deep sleep, but it stays calm. Heart rate may rise a little as neural activity increases, yet it remains far lower than during the day. The autonomic nervous system is shifting, preparing to hand over control to the stage that handles emotional and imaginative processing. This subtle rise in activity creates a bridge between the physical repair of slow-wave sleep and the cognitive work that comes later. The first signs of sensory processing begin to return as well. While the brain does not fully reconnect with external stimuli, it starts to handle internal cues differently. Instead of supporting tissue repair and cellular flushing, neural circuits begin opening doors to emotional networks. The centers responsible for regulating mood and memory start to become more active. Even though there are no dreams yet, the internal environment is slowly tilting toward a state where they can flourish. This shift can be thought of as the brain warming up for the dreaming process that will dominate later cycles. Because the first part of the night is dominated by deep sleep, the initial rise toward dreaming does not lead immediately into a long dream period. The first cycle contains only a short burst of rapid eye movement sleep. This brief duration happens because sleep pressure remains high during the early hours. The brain prioritizes physical restoration before turning its attention to emotional and creative work. As a result, the first dream window is small, almost like a quiet preview of what will come later. With each cycle, slow-wave sleep decreases and the dreaming stage grows longer, but the earliest rise toward dreaming is more tentative. This short initial dream period has a purpose. It allows the brain to begin reactivating the circuits involved in emotional processing without overwhelming the system. The deep sleep that came before has lowered stress hormone levels and restored physical balance. Now the brain begins to experiment with the complex activity required for dream formation. These early minutes of dreaming give the brain a chance to start sorting emotional residue from the day and linking fragments of memory that may need attention. It is the start of a nightly conversation within the mind, one that will become more elaborate in later cycles. During this rise toward dreaming, awareness continues to remain disconnected from the outside world. Sensory information becomes even less influential than it was in light sleep. The brain is shifting from processing external input to processing internal states instead. Emotions, memories, impressions, and fragments of experience become the raw materials for the work ahead. It is a quiet redirection of attention from the physical to the psychological. That redirection is essential for the dreaming stage to function properly. The shift in neural patterns also affects how time is perceived, although the sleeper will not notice it. Just as deep sleep distorts the sense of time, this upward movement can create its own distortions. Because the brain is beginning to operate more quickly again, moments can feel shorter or longer, in ways that do not translate to waking experience. This sensation becomes more noticeable during dreams, but the groundwork is set during this upward drift. One of the reasons this stage is so important is that it helps protect the continuity of sleep. Instead of moving abruptly from deep sleep into intense dreaming, the brain moves upward in a controlled way. This prevents sudden transitions that might cause awakening. The gradual change allows the body to maintain stillness even as the brain shifts into a more active mode. Without this careful balance, dreaming might be disruptive rather than restorative. As the brain becomes more active internally, certain regions begin preparing for the emotional and sensory richness of dreams. The areas involved in processing visual information start to show faint signs of increasing activity. Emotional centers prepare to become more responsive. memory regions begin to loosen their organization, creating the flexibility needed for dream stories to form. None of this leads to conscious awareness, but all of it contributes to the coming stage. Another subtle feature of this rise is that the brain begins to partially disconnect regions involved in logic and decision-making. These areas become slightly quieter, allowing emotional and sensory networks to take a more prominent role. This shift helps explain why dreams often feel nonlinear or unusual. The structures that organize waking thought are temporarily downregulated, giving space to more fluid patterns of association. Even though the first dream period is short, it marks an important turning point in the night. The balance of the cycle begins to change. The repair-focused work of deep sleep fades into the background, and the processing-focused work of dreaming begins to emerge. Over the course of the night, this pattern repeats and expands, but everything starts here, with this gentle rise toward dreaming. This stage is one of the quietest transitions in the night, yet it represents a profound internal reorganization. The body stays relaxed, the senses withdraw further, and the brain prepares itself for a new kind of activity. It is a moment where physical restoration gives way to emotional and imaginative exploration. The slow, steady climb toward dreaming forms the bridge between two essential halves of sleep, allowing the night to move from stillness into movement, and from silence into the vivid world that unfolds behind closed eyes. REM sleep arrives like a quiet ignition within the night, shifting the brain from the deep stillness of slow wave sleep into a state that is extraordinarily active. Even though the body remains fully at rest, the mind becomes busy again, bursting with electrical patterns that resemble wakefulness far more than any other sleep stage. This is why REM is sometimes called paradoxical sleep. From the outside, you appear peaceful and unmoving. Inside, the brain is alight with activity, exploring memories, emotions, sensations, and fragments of experience with remarkable intensity. It is the stage where most vivid dreaming occurs, and where the mind begins weaving its nightly theatre. One of the most striking changes during REM is the sudden rise in neural activity. Regions of the brain involved in perception, emotion, movement planning, and memory light up almost as if the person were awake. The electrical rhythms lose the slow, sweeping waves seen in deep sleep, and instead become rapid and irregular. This burst of activity is not chaotic. It reflects the brain entering a creative and highly flexible state. While awake, neural activity is shaped by the outside world. During REM, the brain turns inward, generating its own sensory landscape. At the same time, areas responsible for logical reasoning and self-monitoring become less active. This shift helps explain why dreams often feel strange, imaginative, or unbound by the rules of waking life. The usual filters that guide thought become quieter, allowing emotional and sensory networks to take the lead. This combination of high activity and reduced oversight gives REM dreams their vivid, fluid quality. Scenes change quickly, characters appear without explanation, and events unfold with an emotional weight that feels real, even though the story itself may not make sense once awake. Despite the intense activity of the brain, the body remains almost entirely still. This near-complete paralysis, known as atonia, is one of the defining features of REM sleep. It is produced by signals from the brainstem that inhibit most voluntary muscle movement. Without this mechanism, the body might attempt to act out dreams, leading to dangerous or chaotic movements. Atonia ensures that the vivid activity of the brain does not translate into physical action. The sleeper remains safely anchored, even as the mind runs freely through imagined worlds. Only the muscles involved in breathing and a few small facial twitches remain active. The eyes, however, behave differently. Beneath closed eyelids, they move rapidly in various directions, sometimes darting, sometimes gliding. These movements are not random. They reflect the brain responding to imagery generated within the dream. Just as the eyes track scenes during wakefulness, they mimic shifts in internal vision during REM. The rapid movement may accompany changes in dream scenery or emotional focus. Although the body is paralyzed, the eye muscles are spared from atonia, creating one of the most distinctive external signs that someone has entered this stage. Because of its intense neural activity, REM sleep plays a powerful role in emotional processing. The parts of the brain that evaluate emotional experiences become highly active during this stage. The amygdala, which helps assess emotional significance, becomes more responsive. The hippocampus, which supports memory, interacts with these emotional centers, allowing the brain to revisit and reshape emotional events from the day. This interaction helps explain why dreams often carry strong feelings. Even if the dream setting is unusual, the emotional tone may reflect something meaningful. REM sleep gives the mind a space to process emotional residue in a safe, controlled environment. It separates the emotional intensity of an experience from the memory of the event itself, helping you feel more balanced the next day. Memory networks also become highly active during this stage. While deep sleep supports the stabilization of factual and physical skills, REM helps integrate memories in more creative ways. It links experiences, blends ideas, and strengthens connections that may not have been obvious while awake. This creative integration is one reason why people sometimes wake from a dream with a new insight or a sudden sense of clarity. The brain has been exploring connections without the constraints that shape conscious thinking. REM sleep allows memories to be reorganized so they fit more smoothly with the overall narrative of a person's life. Because the brain behaves almost as if awake, the dreaming experience during REM can feel incredibly vivid. Colors seem bright, movement feels natural, and conversations flow even though the person is not consciously directing any of it. The mind generates sensory impressions using some of the same neural pathways activated during actual perception. Although the senses are not receiving input from the outside world, the brain's internal simulation is so rich that the dream can feel just as real in the moment. This vividness is part of what makes REM dreams memorable, especially if a person wakes directly from the stage. The autonomic nervous system also becomes more active during REM. Heart rate and breathing can become irregular, reflecting changes in the emotional content of dreams. If the dream becomes tense, the heart may speed up. If it becomes peaceful, breathing may deepen. These shifts do not mean anything dangerous is occurring. They simply reflect the brain's immersion in its own internal story. The body remains safe, even as it echoes the emotions unfolding within the dream. REM sleep becomes longer as the night progresses. The first REM period is often brief, sometimes only a few minutes. But with each cycle, this stage expands. By the end of the night, REM periods can last half an hour or more. This shifting balance mirrors the changing needs of the body. Early in the night, physical restoration takes priority. Later, emotional and cognitive processing become more important, allowing REM sleep to dominate the final hours before waking. This gradual expansion also explains why dreams often feel more detailed or elaborate just before morning. Because REM sleep is so active, disruptions to this stage can affect emotional balance the next day. People who consistently miss REM may feel more irritable, more reactive, or more easily overwhelmed. Memory can feel less stable, and creative thinking may feel duller. Over time, insufficient REM sleep can make it more difficult to process stress. The brain depends on this nightly theatre not only for imagination, but also for mental health. The paradox of REM sleep lies in its dual nature. The body is relaxed, quiet, and still. The brain, meanwhile, behaves as though it is wide awake, generating images, emotions, and narratives with extraordinary complexity. This contrast creates a unique state unlike anything in waking life. It is both rest and activity, silence and motion, stillness and imagination. Even though dreams are often strange, humorous, or surreal, they are part of a deeply meaningful process. The brain uses them to explore emotional questions, rehearse possible scenarios, and reorganize memories. The dreaming mind could be playful or intense, comforting or unsettling, but it always serves a purpose. REM sleep allows the mind to experience the world without boundaries, to imagine freely, and to restore its emotional equilibrium. As the cycle continues, REM gradually fades, and the brain prepares to descend once more. The eyes slow, the activity decreases, and the body remains still as the stage transitions into the next phase of the night. This rhythmic alternation between deep physical restoration and vivid emotional exploration is what makes sleep such an extraordinary biological process. REM sleep is only part of the pattern, but it is the most colourful, creative, and expressive part. It offers the mind the freedom to wander, to explore, and to dream, all while the body rests safely beneath the surface. Dreams are created in a space where memory, emotion, and imagination intertwine, forming scenes that feel vivid yet strangely untethered from ordinary logic. When the brain enters the dreaming stage, it shifts into a mode that blends elements of waking experience with internal impressions. This mixture creates the rich, surreal worlds that arise each night. To understand how dreams form, it helps to look at how different parts of the brain begin interacting in ways they never do during wakefulness. The dreaming mind is not simply recalling experiences or inventing fantasy. It is weaving together fragments of memory, sensory impressions, and emotional patterns to create something entirely new. During waking life, memories are organized carefully. They are connected to context, time, and personal meaning. When dreaming begins, the networks responsible for storing and retrieving memories become active again, but they do not follow the usual rules. Instead of presenting memories in a structured way, the brain accesses fragments. A location you visited during the day may appear beside a face you have not seen in years. A sound from childhood might blend with a scene inspired by something you read recently. The memory networks begin releasing these elements freely, allowing them to combine based on emotional relevance rather than logical connection. The sensory regions of the brain play a significant role in shaping the texture of dreams. These regions become active during REM sleep, even though they are not receiving input from the outside world. The visual cortex, for example, produces images internally, using memory and imagination as its source of material. This is why dreams often appear visually rich and colourful. The brain is using the same pathways it uses during wakefulness to create the impression of sight. Sounds, smells, and tactile sensations may appear as well, created not by external stimuli but by the brain's own activity. Even though these sensations can feel realistic in the moment, they lack the stability and clarity of waking perception because the brain is not anchored to physical surroundings. Emotional centers also become highly active during dreams, especially the amygdala, which helps process feelings such as fear, excitement, longing, and joy. This heightened emotional activity is one of the reasons dreams can feel intense. Even when the narrative is fragmented or strange, the feelings within the dream can be powerful and persuasive. The brain may revisit experiences from the day, but it does so in a way that emphasizes emotion over detail. This emotional intensity can give dreams a sense of importance, even when the events themselves appear nonsensical. Sometimes a dream may use symbolic elements to represent feelings that are difficult to express directly. These symbols are not necessarily deliberate. They arise naturally from the way emotional networks influence memory and imagination during sleep. One of the most influential factors shaping dream logic is the reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex. During wakefulness, this part of the brain helps maintain order in thought. It keeps track of time, makes decisions, weighs consequences, and ensures that ideas follow a coherent structure. When the prefrontal cortex becomes less active during REM sleep, this structure loosens. The dreaming mind becomes more accepting of impossible events. A familiar place may shift shape. People may appear and disappear without explanation. The laws of physics may bend. Because logical oversight is reduced, the brain does not question these changes. They simply unfold, and the dreamer experiences them as natural. This reduction in logical oversight also contributes to the lack of continuity in dreams. Scenes may shift abruptly, conversations may begin without context, the sense of time may stretch, collapse, or disappear entirely. Instead of a linear narrative, dreams often follow emotional or associative pathways. If one image reminds the brain of another, the dream may leap from one scene to the next without transition. This fluidity can create dream stories that feel meaningful while unfolding in ways that would never occur during wakefulness. The brain is not concerned with coherence. It is focused on emotional processing and the integration of memory fragments. Because dreams draw from memory, they sometimes contain elements that feel symbolic. A person who appears in a dream might represent a quality rather than themselves. A location might embody a feeling rather than a memory. These symbols are not always intentional constructs. They arise from the brain's tendency to link memories and emotions that share similar qualities. When dreaming, the mind works more like a poet than a historian. It blends meaning and imagery in ways that capture emotional truths rather than factual accuracy. The visual richness of dreams is shaped by the activity in the visual cortex, but this richness does not guarantee clarity. Many dreams feel vivid in color and motion, yet blurry in detail. This happens because the brain is generating these images from within, without the sharp cues provided by real vision. The result is a world that feels full and immersive but becomes difficult to describe once awake. Details fade quickly because the brain does not store dream imagery in the same way it stores waking experience. The lack of clarity does not diminish the emotional power of the dream. It simply reflects the difference between internal and external perception. Dreams can also blend sensory impressions in unusual ways. A sound may be linked to an image that has no relation to it. A familiar voice may come from an unfamiliar face. The boundaries between senses can blur because the brain is combining neural activity freely. This creative mixture contributes to the surreal nature of dreams. The brain is not trying to recreate reality. It is experimenting with possibilities, exploring associations, and processing experiences through a lens that is far more fluid than waking thought. Some dreams contain strong emotional reactions because the dream state allows feelings to be processed without the constraints of logic or external demands. A small worry from the day can become a dramatic scene. A quiet longing may transform into a symbolic journey. These exaggerations are not arbitrary. They reflect the brain's attempt to highlight emotional significance. In this way, dreams can act like internal rehearsals, allowing the mind to explore feelings safely. They do not always offer solutions, but they help release emotional tension and reorganize experiences into forms that the waking mind can later handle more easily. The brain's ability to create complex dream worlds speaks to the flexibility of memory networks. Because the dreaming mind can access memories without the usual rules, it can combine distant experiences into new forms. This creative mixing can produce dreams that feel meaningful even when their logic is unusual. The dreaming mind is not limited by physical constraints. It can place childhood memories alongside current concerns, mix places from different times, or create entirely new landscapes. These combinations help the brain integrate experiences across the lifespan, making dreams a part of long-term psychological balance. Even though the dream experience can feel bewildering upon waking, the internal process behind it follows a clear biological purpose. Dreams help weave together emotional impressions, strengthen connections between memories, and soften the impact of stressful or confusing events. They offer the brain a unique opportunity to explore its own internal world without interruption. The strangeness that often accompanies dreams is not a flaw, but a reflection of how differently the brain operates when freed from the constraints of waking life. The creation of dreams is not a single mechanism, but a collaboration between memory, emotion, imagination, and sensory simulation. Each part contributes something essential. The memories provide material, the emotional centers provide tone, the sensory cortices provide texture, and the reduced activity in logical regions allows the story to flow freely. Together, they create the nightly theatre that unfolds behind closed eyes, offering the mind a place to explore, process, and imagine until morning arrives again. Dreams have fascinated people for as long as humans have been able to wonder about the mind. They are vivid enough to feel important, yet inconsistent enough to feel mysterious. Science has spent decades trying to understand why the brain dreams, and although no single answer has been confirmed, several compelling ideas have emerged. Each one captures a different aspect of the dreaming mind, and together they offer a rich, nuanced picture of why dreams might exist at all. Rather than providing a definitive explanation, these theories offer possibilities, each highlighting a unique role dreams might play in shaping memory, emotion, creativity, and survival. One of the most widely discussed ideas is that dreaming helps consolidate memories. Throughout the day, the brain gathers enormous amounts of information. Much of it is unimportant, some of it matters only briefly, and a portion of it needs to be stored long-term. During deep sleep, memories are stabilized, but during dreaming, those memories may be reorganized and woven into broader networks. When a dream incorporates fragments of something learned recently, it may reflect the brain's attempt to strengthen that memory by connecting it to older experiences. These connections make memories more flexible and easier to use later. This idea helps explain why students studying for exams often find that a good night of sleep improves recall far better than late-night cramming. The brain uses dreams to continue working long after waking effort has stopped. Another influential idea focuses on emotional calibration. When dreaming begins, emotional brain regions become active, sometimes even more active than during wakefulness. The brain appears to replay emotional impressions from the day, but it does so in a context where the body is safe and paralyzed. This gives the brain a chance to rehearse or soften emotional responses without the consequences that accompany waking life. For example, a dream about a stressful event does not necessarily reflect the event itself, but may reflect the emotional weight associated with it. The brain may use dreams to lower the intensity of strong feelings, helping prevent emotional overload. This could explain why people often wake from dreams feeling calmer, even if the dream content was unusual. The dreaming mind may help regulate emotions by giving them space to unfold in a controlled environment. A related idea suggests that dreams help integrate creative thinking. When awake, the brain follows certain rules. Logic keeps ideas organized, and attention remains focused on practical concerns. But during dreaming, logical oversight decreases, and the brain allows ideas to combine in freer, more flexible ways. This can lead to unusual combinations of memories, impressions, and images that would never occur during the day. These unexpected associations can spark new insights. Many artists, mathematicians, and scientists throughout history have reported gaining inspiration from dreams, not because dreams deliver ready-made solutions, but because they open pathways the waking mind might ignore. The creative integration theory proposes that dreaming helps the brain explore distant connections, expanding its ability to solve problems or generate new ideas once awake. Another fascinating theory is known as threat simulation. It suggests that dreams allow the mind to rehearse responding to danger in a safe environment. In ancient environments, threats such as predators or social conflict shaped survival. The brain might have evolved to simulate frightening or challenging scenarios during dreams, giving individuals a chance to practice responses without real-world risk. Even today, some dreams reflect themes of being pursued, facing challenges, or navigating uncertainty. These scenarios do not necessarily predict danger, but they may help train the emotional and cognitive systems responsible for handling stress. The dreaming mind may rehearse fear so the waking mind can face difficulty with greater resilience. Some researchers propose that dreams serve a more general problem-solving function. In dreams, the brain is free from the distractions of physical reality. It can explore possibilities, revisit puzzles from the day, or approach challenges from unusual angles. Because the logical regions of the brain are less active, the dreaming mind can consider solutions that feel too unconventional or impractical during wakefulness. After waking, these dream-inspired associations can make certain problems easier to tackle. Even when a dream does not provide a direct answer, it may help by loosening rigid patterns of thinking. This flexibility can make creative solutions more accessible in the morning. Another line of thought considers that dreams might not have a specific purpose. Instead, they may be natural byproducts of the brain processes that occur during REM sleep. During this stage, the brain becomes highly active while the body remains still. Sensory regions activate, memory networks become lively, and emotional centers respond to internal signals. Dreams might simply be the subjective experience of these processes. Even if dreaming itself is not the main function, the processes occurring underneath it, memory reorganization, emotional processing, and cognitive recalibration, are undeniably important. In this view, dreams are not the reason REM sleep evolved. They are the mind's interpretation of the essential work happening behind the scenes. Although these theories differ from one another, they are not mutually exclusive. Dreams could serve multiple functions at once, or different dreams might serve different purposes. Some dreams may be emotional rehearsals, others may strengthen memories, others may simply reflect the brain's intrinsic activity as it maintains neural pathways. The science remains open-ended because the dreaming mind is difficult to measure directly. Researchers can observe brain activity, but they cannot directly observe the dream itself. The dream is a private experience, known only to the dreamer after waking. This makes the study of dreaming both challenging and fascinating. One thing that becomes clear when exploring these ideas is that dreams reflect the brain's tendency to keep working even when consciousness fades. The brain never truly shuts down. It shifts from processing the outside world to processing the inner one. Dreams are the visible trace of that inner process. They reveal what the brain finds meaningful, confusing, threatening, joyful, or unresolved. Whether this reflection is intentional or incidental, it provides insight into the workings of the mind. The content of dreams often supports the idea that emotional themes and memory fragments guide dream formation. People frequently dream about problems they are trying to solve, feelings they have not expressed, or memories that hold significance. These elements may appear in strange or exaggerated forms, not because the brain is trying to disguise meaning, but because the dreaming mind operates with fewer restrictions. The surreal quality of dreams may help the brain explore situations more freely. This fluidity invites connections that waking logic might suppress. Even though science has not found one definitive explanation for why dreams exist, the theories suggest that dreaming is more than a random activity. Whether dreams strengthen memory, help regulate emotion, prepare the mind for challenges, inspire creativity, or arise as an echo of deeper processes, they reflect important aspects of how the brain maintains balance. Each night, the brain returns to this imaginative world, weaving together internal signals to create scenes that feel meaningful, confusing, or extraordinary. Dreams offer a glimpse into the mind's hidden work, showing how much activity continues beneath the surface of sleep. They may never reveal all their secrets, but the attempt to understand them deepens appreciation for the complexity of the sleeping brain. Instead of confirming a single function, science continues to reveal layers of possibility, each one adding texture to the mystery of why the mind dreams. Memory often feels like something that belongs to the daytime world, shaped by the things you pay attention to and the moments that leave an impression. But much of memory's real work takes place after the lights are off and the world has gone quiet. During sleep, the brain becomes a careful archivist, reviewing what happened during the day, deciding what to keep, what to strengthen, and what to let fade. This nightly organization is one of sleep's most impressive achievements, and without it, learning would feel foggy, scattered, and unreliable. The brain uses the night not only to store information, but also to understand it, refine it, and weave it into the larger structure of knowledge that guides your behavior. One of the most important players in this process is the hippocampus, a curved structure deep inside the brain. During the day, the hippocampus acts a bit like a temporary storage buffer, gathering new information as you experience it. Whether you learn a new skill, meet someone new, or simply notice something interesting, the hippocampus holds these moments so that they do not immediately fade. But the hippocampus is not built to store memories forever. Instead, it acts as a kind of nightly storyteller, replaying the day's experiences during deep sleep and sending that information to the cortex, the part of the brain responsible for long-term storage. Deep sleep allows this conversation to unfold without interruption, transforming fragile new impressions into stable, lasting memories. Studies suggest that during slow-wave sleep, the hippocampus produces brief bursts of activity that mirror patterns formed earlier in the day. These bursts are sometimes described as memory traces like little echoes of experience. When these echoes reach the cortex, they help reinforce new neural connections, anchoring the memory more securely. This transfer from temporary storage to long-term storage is one reason a good night of sleep often helps you remember something more clearly the next day. Without this nightly replay, memories would remain scattered and unstable, making it harder to build a coherent picture of the world. Sleep does not merely store information, it also refines it. During the day, the brain collects far more data than it truly needs. Every sight, sound, and half-formed thought competes for attention. If every detail were preserved, the brain would be overwhelmed by irrelevant clutter. Sleep provides the opportunity to clear this mental backlog. During deep sleep, unneeded information is pruned away. The brain identifies which memories are useful and which are not, trimming the excess so that important memories stand out more clearly. This pruning makes waking life easier to navigate because you are not weighed down by a jumble of unnecessary details. One of the remarkable effects of this pruning is improved clarity. The mind becomes better at recognizing patterns when it is not overwhelmed by noise. For example, if you spend a day practicing a musical instrument or working on a difficult puzzle, sleep helps the brain identify the most essential elements of that task. The irrelevant missteps fade, and the meaningful patterns strengthen. Musicians often find that a challenging passage becomes easier after a night of sleep, and athletes often notice improvements in coordination or timing. This is because the brain uses sleep to refine the underlying mental and physical processes involved. Skill learning benefits from sleep in ways that waking practice cannot always provide. When you learn a new movement, your brain needs time to coordinate the sequence of muscle activity, refine timing, and build a sense of fluidity. Deep sleep supports this by reinforcing the neural pathways that control skilled movements. Whether it is typing more smoothly, balancing with more confidence, or reacting with better precision, sleep helps shape these abilities quietly in the background. Without this stage of internal rehearsal, progress would be slower and more frustrating. Beyond refining individual skills, sleep also plays a key role in linking memories together. This linking often takes place during REM sleep, when the brain becomes highly active and emotional centers are engaged. REM sleep helps the brain explore connections between memories that may not appear related during the day. This flexible processing is part of what makes dreams feel so imaginative, and it also contributes to insight and problem solving. A solution that felt impossible the day before may suddenly seem obvious after a night of sleep. This is because REM sleep encourages the brain to search for relationships between ideas, blending them in a way that produces new understanding. Emotional memories in particular benefit from REM sleep. When something emotionally significant happens, the memory can be strong but also overwhelming. REM sleep gives the brain a chance to revisit that memory while reducing its emotional intensity. The factual details remain, but the emotional edge softens. This process is sometimes described as putting memories into context, helping the mind see events more clearly. It allows you to remember without being overwhelmed, turning raw experiences into something manageable. Without this nightly recalibration, emotional memories could remain too sharp, making it difficult to move forward. Pattern recognition also improves during sleep. When the brain is freed from external distractions, it can compare memories with greater precision. This ability is essential for many forms of learning, from recognizing language patterns to understanding how different concepts relate to each other. During sleep, especially during REM, the brain becomes more open to making unusual but meaningful connections. These connections support creativity, logic, and intuition. The clearer the patterns become, the easier it is to learn new skills, understand complex ideas, and adapt to new situations. Problem-solving benefits in much the same way. When you face a difficult task, your waking mind often becomes stuck on familiar approaches. Sleep, particularly REM sleep, loosens these constraints. It encourages the mind to explore unfamiliar routes, which can reveal solutions that remain hidden during the day. Many people experience this as the feeling of suddenly knowing what to do in the morning, even if the problem felt unsolvable the night before. The brain has been working quietly, testing possibilities without the pressure of direct focus. Another important aspect of memory consolidation is the balance between stability and flexibility. The brain needs memories to be strong enough to last, but flexible enough to adapt when new information arrives. Sleep maintains this balance. Deep sleep strengthens the structure of memories, while REM sleep allows them to remain adaptable. This combination helps create a memory system that is dependable yet capable of change. Without sleep, memories can become either too rigid or too fragile, making learning more difficult. The interaction between the hippocampus and cortex is central to this process. The hippocampus helps stabilize new memories, while the cortex provides the long-term framework. Together, they create a layered memory system that supports both immediate recall and lifelong knowledge. Sleep ensures that these two regions communicate effectively, transferring information at a pace the brain can manage. If this transfer is interrupted, the memory system loses its coherence, and learning becomes less efficient. As the night progresses, the brain cycles repeatedly through stages that each play a role in shaping memory. Deep sleep preserves the raw information, while REM sleep blends it into a wider network. Light sleep supports transitions and keeps the process running smoothly. Each cycle builds on the one before it, gradually transforming the day's experiences into something stable, meaningful, and accessible. By morning, the mind is clearer, more focused, and better prepared to learn again. Sleep's effect on memory is not a passive one. It is an active, ongoing process that shapes how you understand the world. It allows the mind to keep essential information, discard what is unnecessary, refine what is useful, and connect what is meaningful. Without sleep, learning becomes patchy, emotional balance becomes fragile, and problem-solving becomes sluggish. With sleep, the mind becomes a dynamic, adaptable system capable of continuous growth. Night after night, memory is strengthened not by effort, but by the quiet, rhythmic work of the sleeping brain. It is during these hours, when the world is still, that your mind gains the clarity and structure it needs to navigate the days ahead. Sleep has a quiet but powerful influence on emotional well-being, shaping how you respond to the world long before you open your eyes each morning. Even though sleep may appear like a simple pause between one day and the next, it plays an essential role in maintaining emotional balance. During the night, the brain revisits memories, softens reactions, stabilizes its own internal systems, and helps prepare you for the emotional demands of the coming day. Without this nightly calibration, the mind becomes reactive, overwhelmed, and far less capable of handling everyday challenges with calmness and clarity. One of the most important processes involved in emotional regulation takes place during REM sleep. When the brain enters this stage, emotional memories from the day are brought forward, but in a very specific way. The brain replays these memories while lowering the levels of chemicals associated with stress and arousal. This combination allows you to revisit experiences without reliving the full emotional intensity attached to them. It is as though the brain gently removes the sharp edges from difficult moments, leaving the factual details intact while softening their emotional charge. This helps the mind understand and integrate experiences without being overwhelmed by them. This reduction in emotional intensity does not erase the importance of a memory. Instead, it places the memory into a calmer, more manageable state. You may still remember a stressful conversation or an unexpected disappointment, but after a night of sleep, those experiences often feel less painful and more distant. The emotional centers of the brain, particularly the amygdala, become steadier and less reactive. The amygdala is responsible for detecting threats and triggering emotional responses. When sleep is sufficient, the amygdala responds in a balanced way. When sleep is lacking, it becomes hypersensitive, reacting strongly to even small challenges. Researchers have observed that after a full night of sleep, the amygdala shows more regulated activity, supported by strong communication with the prefrontal cortex, the region involved in reasoning and emotional restraint. During sleep, especially REM sleep, these regions recalibrate their connection. Healthy sleep strengthens this pathway, making it easier to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. When this connection is disrupted by lack of sleep, the amygdala tends to act alone, amplifying emotions without the steadying influence of rational guidance. This heightened emotional reactivity is one of the reasons sleep loss often leads to irritability. When the brain is tired, it becomes harder to let go of small frustrations. Everyday challenges, such as misplaced keys or minor disagreements, feel larger than they should. This is not simply a matter of mood. It is a direct reflection of what is happening in the brain. Sleep provides the maintenance that keeps emotional responses balanced, and without that maintenance, the system becomes unstable. Lack of sleep also affects the body's stress response. When sleep is restricted, levels of stress-related hormones tend to rise. This can leave the body in a heightened state of alertness, making it harder to relax even when there is no immediate reason to feel tense. Over time, this can create a cycle in which stress disrupts sleep, and disrupted sleep increases stress. Even a single night of reduced sleep can lead to increased sensitivity to pressure, making tasks feel more demanding and interactions feel more difficult. Emotional volatility increases for similar reasons. Without sleep, the brain struggles to filter and organize emotional information. Small experiences can feel significant, and significant experiences can feel overwhelming. The world may appear slightly sharper, louder, or more chaotic than usual. This effect is not imagined. It is rooted in measurable changes in how the brain processes emotion when deprived of rest. Sleep repairs and stabilizes these systems, restoring the ability to respond with nuance. Dreaming also plays a role in emotional health. During dreams, the brain revisits old memories, blends them with imagination, and creates scenarios that may feel strange but serve a useful purpose. Dreaming provides a kind of emotional rehearsal, allowing the mind to explore situations in a safe environment. By encountering emotional themes in dreams, the brain can process them without the consequences or pressures of waking life. This rehearsal may help reduce fear, ease tension, and build resilience. Some dreams appear to rehearse potential challenges, presenting you with scenarios that resemble real-world stressors. These dream experiences allow the brain to simulate responses, strengthening emotional readiness for similar challenges in waking life. This does not mean dreams predict the future. Instead, they explore possibilities, giving the brain practice in managing emotions under different conditions. This practice is subtle, but contributes to the sense that you can handle situations more calmly after a restful night. Other types of dreams seem designed to soothe rather than rehearse. In these dreams, emotional content is woven into gentler narratives that help the mind work through tension or sadness. Even when dreams are strange or fragmented, they offer an outlet for the emotions that the mind cannot easily process during the day. This emotional release helps explain why waking from a dream can sometimes leave you feeling lighter, as though something has quietly been resolved. Beyond dreaming, sleep supports emotional well-being through its influence on the body's systems. Sleep stabilizes heart rate patterns, lowers evening levels of alertness-promoting chemicals, and reduces physiological tension. These changes contribute to a sense of emotional ease, making it easier to feel calm and grounded. Without this nightly reset, emotional responses become more unpredictable. You may feel exhausted but wired, sleepy but restless, or calm in one moment and overwhelmed in the next. Healthy sleep patterns strengthen emotional resilience. With sufficient rest, the mind becomes more capable of handling uncertainty, adapting to change and recovering from stressful experiences. Emotional resilience is not simply about staying calm. It is about returning to balance after being disrupted. Sleep supports this ability by reinforcing the networks that help regulate emotional responses. These networks rely on consistent maintenance, and sleep provides that maintenance each night. Dreams and sleep also influence how memories are interpreted. Emotional memories often carry intense feelings that can distort perspective. Sleep helps separate the factual content from the emotional reaction, allowing you to recall events without reliving them. This separation gives you space to understand experiences more clearly, rather than reacting to them as though they are happening again. When sleep is missing, emotional memories may remain vivid and raw, making it harder to move forward. This nightly work does not erase emotion, nor does it suppress important feelings. Instead, it supports the healthy processing of emotion. When sleep is consistent, the brain is better able to identify what needs attention and what can be released. This clarity benefits relationships, decision-making, and overall well-being. Emotional stability comes not from ignoring feelings, but from giving the brain the time and structure it needs to process them properly. Sleep also improves social interactions by supporting empathy and patience. When the brain is rested, it is easier to recognize and understand the emotions of others. Without sleep, this becomes difficult. People may misinterpret social cues or overreact to minor misunderstandings. The brain's ability to read emotional signals becomes less precise. A good night's sleep strengthens this ability, helping you connect with others more effectively. In many ways, emotional well-being depends on sleep just as much as physical health does. Sleep supports the systems that regulate mood, interpret experiences, and manage stress. When sleep is disrupted, emotional stability is one of the first things to suffer. When sleep is restored, emotional clarity often returns with surprising speed. Night after night, sleep provides a foundation for emotional balance. It softens the intensity of difficult memories, steadies the emotional centers of the brain, reduces the strain of stress, and offers quiet rehearsals for the challenges ahead. By morning, the mind feels clearer and better, prepared to move through the world with steadiness and understanding. When sleep begins, the shift inside the body is far greater than the quiet stillness visible from the outside. While the mind moves through its cycles, the body follows its own nightly routine, adjusting every major system in preparation for restoration. These changes unfold in a slow and coordinated sequence, affecting the heart, lungs, muscles, hormones, metabolism, and even the way the body processes hunger. Sleep is more than a resting state for the mind. It is a full-body recalibration, carefully timed and remarkably efficient. One of the earliest changes is a gradual slowing of the heart rate. During wakefulness, the heart adjusts constantly to movement, emotion, and thought. Even mild experiences can cause subtle increases in heart activity. When sleep arrives, the body releases the pressure of these demands. The heart rate dips as the parasympathetic nervous system becomes more active. This branch of the nervous system is responsible for calming the body, lowering stress levels, and promoting repair. As the heart slows, blood pressure follows. The walls of the blood vessels loosen slightly, allowing blood to move more easily. This reduction in pressure gives the cardiovascular system a chance to rest and recover from the constant adjustments required during the day. Along with these changes, breathing shifts into a slower, more consistent rhythm. During the day, breathing patterns are influenced by speech, posture, and emotion. In sleep, breathing becomes deeper and more regular. The diaphragm moves with a steadier motion, and the airways relax. In certain stages of sleep, especially deep sleep, breathing becomes particularly slow. In other stages, such as REM sleep, it may become slightly irregular again because the brain is highly active. Even these variations are normal and part of the nightly cycle. This alternation between steady and irregular breathing helps the brain regulate oxygen levels and maintain the body's internal balance. Body temperature also follows a predictable pattern. After dusk, the body begins to cool, preparing for the lower metabolic demands of sleep. This cooling continues throughout the night, reaching its lowest point in the early hours of the morning. The drop in temperature helps the body move into deeper stages of sleep. This is why a warm room or heavy bedding can sometimes make it harder to fall asleep. The body prefers to lose a small amount of heat through the hands and feet. When this happens, sleep often follows naturally. The temperature shift is not dramatic, but even a slight change can influence how easily sleep arrives and how deeply it progresses. Inside the body, the endocrine system also shifts into nighttime mode. Hormones that support alertness decrease, while others rise to help with repair and maintenance. Growth-related hormones increase during the early part of the night, supporting tissue repair, muscle maintenance, and bone health. Cortisol, a hormone associated with alertness and stress, typically decreases before bed and reaches its lowest point soon after sleep begins. It gradually rises again as morning approaches, preparing the body to wake. Melatonin remains elevated through much of the night, maintaining the internal sense of darkness. Other hormones that regulate metabolism, appetite, and fluid balance also adjust their levels, shaping how the body manages energy. Muscle relaxation is another major change during sleep. When the body enters deeper stages, muscle tone decreases significantly. This relaxation is more than simply lying still. It is a sustained release of tension that protects the muscles and joints from strain. Without this nightly relaxation, muscles would remain in a constant state of readiness, making injury more likely and increasing overall fatigue. During REM sleep, muscle tone reduces even further, approaching near total stillness. This prevents the body from acting out dreams. Although this state of reduced movement may appear passive, it is a protective mechanism that keeps the muscles safe while the brain is active. As muscles relax, posture becomes more consistent. During the day, the body shifts position frequently to maintain balance and comfort. At night, movements are smaller and occur mainly at the transitions between sleep stages. These shifts prevent stiffness and help redistribute pressure across the body. Even small movements are part of a healthy sleep pattern, reducing strain on joints and supporting circulation. The combination of reduced tension and gentle repositioning allows the body to rest without accumulating discomfort. Sleep also brings significant changes to metabolism. During wakefulness, the body uses energy to support movement, digestion, thinking, and temperature regulation. During sleep, these demands decrease, allowing the body to conserve energy. Metabolic rate lowers as the body focuses on repair rather than activity. Glucose is used more slowly, and insulin sensitivity adjusts. These changes help support long-term metabolic health. A disrupted night can interfere with this process, leading to difficulty managing energy the next day. The digestive system also slows at night. Food moves through the stomach more slowly, and digestive secretions decrease. This shift is partly why eating a large meal late in the evening can disrupt sleep. The body has to work harder to process the food, which interferes with its ability to settle into a restful state. At the same time, hormones involved in appetite regulation adjust themselves. Levels of leptin, which help signal fullness, increase, while levels of ghrelin, which stimulates hunger, decrease. This balance helps prevent unnecessary hunger during sleep and contributes to stable energy levels the next day. Fluid balance also shifts during sleep. The kidneys filter blood differently, reducing urine production so the body is less likely to wake during the night. This natural adjustment helps maintain uninterrupted sleep. Meanwhile, the skin loses heat and moisture through slight perspiration, contributing to the overall cooling process. Even these small changes reflect the coordination of the body's systems, all working together to support rest. The immune system becomes more active at night as well. While the body is still, the immune system increases the production of certain signaling molecules that support repair and defense. This is one reason sleep is so important for recovery from illness. When the immune system receives the uninterrupted time it needs, it becomes more efficient at targeting bacteria, viruses, and other threats. Without enough sleep, the immune response becomes less effective, making it easier for infections to take hold. Circulation adjusts to support these internal processes. Blood flow to the muscles decreases, while flow to the brain and internal organs increases during specific stages. These changes help distribute nutrients where they are needed most and manage the body's nightly tasks. The cardiovascular system works less strenuously overall, which helps preserve long-term heart health. Regular, sufficient sleep supports healthy blood vessel function, whereas poor sleep places strain on this delicate system. Even the skin benefits during sleep. Blood flow increases to the skin's surface during certain phases, supporting repair of minor damage caused by sun exposure, dryness, and daily wear. Collagen production increases, and the skin's natural healing processes speed up. This is why consistent sleep often leads to a healthier complexion, while lack of sleep can make the skin appear dull or tired. Throughout these changes, the body remains in constant communication with itself. Signals pass between organs, glands, and the nervous system, coordinating the shifts that allow sleep to do its work. This coordination ensures that each system receives the rest or attention it needs. Although these processes are complex, they unfold without any conscious effort. The body follows a pattern that has been shaped by millions of years of evolution, refined to support survival, health, and balance. Sleep is not a passive state. It is an active period during which the body repairs, resets, and prepares itself for the next day. Every system participates, from the heart and lungs to the muscles and hormones. By morning, these systems have regained stability, allowing you to wake with renewed energy. The sense of feeling refreshed is not just a pleasant experience, It reflects the careful work the body has completed during the night. A full night of sleep unfolds in a pattern that repeats with remarkable consistency, even though you rarely notice it happening. From the outside, sleep appears to be one long unbroken stretch of stillness. Inside the mind and body, however, the night is organized into a sequence of stages that rise, fall, and cycle in a rhythm shaped by biology. This structure is often called sleep architecture, and much like the blueprint of a building, it determines how the night is arranged and how each part supports the others. Understanding this internal map reveals that sleep is not a single state, but a series of shifting depths and transitions that work together to restore the body and mind. A typical night is divided into repeating cycles that last around 90 minutes, although the exact length varies slightly from person to person. Each cycle includes light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep, with the proportions changing as the night progresses. At the beginning of the night, the body prioritizes deep sleep. This early emphasis on deep sleep reflects the physical needs built up during the day. Deep sleep supports tissue repair, helps regulate metabolism, strengthens the immune system, and allows the brain to clear metabolic waste. The first 1 or 2 cycles often contain the greatest amount of deep sleep, with long stretches where the brain produces slow, synchronized waves and the body reaches its most restful state. As the night continues, the balance shifts. Deep sleep becomes shorter, and REM sleep becomes longer. REM sleep is the stage associated with vivid dreaming, heightened brain activity, and powerful emotional processing. The early cycles may include only a few minutes of REM, while the final cycle before waking can include a much longer period. This shift in emphasis reflects changing priorities within the body. After physical restoration is largely complete, the brain turns its attention to memory, learning, and emotional regulation, all of which rely on REM sleep. The alternation between these periods of deep restoration and mental processing creates a rhythm that guides the brain and body through the night. The transitions between stages happen without conscious awareness. You do not feel deep sleep beginning or REM sleep approaching. Instead, the brain adjusts its electrical patterns automatically. Light sleep often serves as the bridge between stages, helping the brain shift from one depth to another smoothly. During light sleep, heart rate, breathing, and temperature settle into stable patterns. This stability gives the brain the flexibility to move upward toward REM or downward toward deep sleep. These transitions are not abrupt. They unfold gradually, with each stage blending into the next in a way that preserves the internal rhythm. During deep sleep, the brain produces slow, high-amplitude waves that sweep across the cortex. Muscles relax, breathing slows, and the body enters its most restorative state. These phases often dominate the first third of the night. As deep sleep decreases later in the night, REM sleep becomes more frequent. During REM sleep, the brain becomes almost as active as it is during wakefulness, but the body remains largely still. Muscles relax to prevent movement, and the eyes move rapidly beneath the eyelids. This stage supports emotional balance and allows the brain to integrate memories into larger networks of knowledge. Across the night, these cycles repeat in a pattern that feels seamless. While you may wake briefly between cycles, these moments are usually too short to remember. The brain is designed to maintain continuity, allowing you to feel as though sleep is a single uninterrupted experience. This continuity is important for rest. Even though sleep is made of many parts, the brain weaves them together into a unified process that leaves you feeling refreshed by morning. Sleep architecture also changes throughout life. infants spend far more time in REM sleep than adults, reflecting the rapid development of the brain during early years. Their sleep cycles are shorter and transitions happen more quickly. As children grow, the proportion of deep sleep increases, supporting physical development and learning. Teenagers often experience shifts in timing that make it natural to stay awake later and wake later. These changes do not reflect laziness or inconsistent habits. They are driven by biological adjustments in the internal clock. In adulthood, sleep architecture becomes more stable. Deep sleep continues to provide physical restoration, while REM sleep supports emotional health and cognitive function. The balance between stages remains consistent across most of adulthood, although individual sleep patterns can vary. Some people naturally cycle through stages more quickly, while others need longer to reach deep sleep. Lifestyle factors such as light exposure, stress, and physical activity influence how easily the body enters these stages, but the underlying structure tends to remain intact. As people age, the amount of deep sleep often decreases. This is a normal part of aging and reflects changes in brain structure and function. Older adults may wake more often during the night or spend more time in lighter stages. Despite these changes, sleep remains essential for maintaining health. While the structure of sleep adjusts, its purpose does not disappear. The body continues to rely on sleep for memory consolidation, tissue repair, emotional regulation, and immune support. A typical 7 to 8 hour night includes around 4 to 6 sleep cycles. The first cycle begins with the transition from wakefulness into light sleep. Breathing and heart rate slow, and brain activity begins to change. After moving through light sleep, the body enters deep sleep for the first major portion of restoration. This deep sleep may last for a significant stretch before the brain begins to ascend again into lighter stages. Once the first REM period arrives, the brain becomes more active, the eyes move rapidly, and dreams begin to form. This sequence concludes the first cycle. The second cycle follows a similar pattern, but includes slightly less deep sleep and slightly more REM sleep. By the third and fourth cycles, deep sleep may occur only briefly or not at all. REM sleep expands during these later cycles, reflecting the brain's increased focus on emotional integration and memory processing. The final cycle before waking often contains the longest stretch of REM sleep. This is why dreams near the morning may feel more vivid or easier to recall. This rhythmic structure creates a balanced distribution of physical and mental restoration. The early cycles repair the body, while the later cycles strengthen the mind. The shift between these priorities ensures that waking life is supported from both directions. A night with disrupted early cycles may leave you physically tired, while a night with disrupted later cycles may leave you emotionally fragile or mentally scattered. The structure is designed to be resilient, but repeated disruption can affect well-being. Throughout the night, the brain constantly monitors internal conditions. If the body is warmer or cooler than expected, or if external noise fluctuates, the brain adjusts the balance between stages. This built-in adaptability helps protect the continuity of sleep, allowing the body to maintain its nightly routine even under less than ideal circumstances. While small disturbances may cause brief awakenings, the brain typically returns to its cycle quickly. Understanding this architecture helps explain why sleep feels the way it does. The feeling of being deeply rested often comes from rich cycles of deep sleep early in the night, while the sense of mental clarity and emotional steadiness often comes from healthy stretches of REM sleep later on. When all stages are experienced in their natural pattern, the body and mind complete a full cycle of restoration. A full night's sleep is not a single state, but a structured series of states, each serving a purpose. Together, these cycles form a nightly rhythm that supports every aspect of health. By morning, the body has been repaired, memories have been strengthened, emotions have been balanced, and the brain has completed another session of quiet organization. Even though you may not be aware of it, this architecture shapes how you think, feel, and function in the day ahead. People often talk about sleep as though it should look the same for everyone, as though there is one perfect schedule that all well-rested humans naturally follow. But sleep varies widely from person to person, shaped by biology, environment, culture, and age. These differences are not flaws or signs of poor discipline. They are natural expressions of human diversity. The rhythm that feels effortless for one person may feel impossible for another, and this variation has existed throughout human history. Understanding why people sleep differently can remove pressure, replace frustration with clarity, and reveal how deeply individual sleep patterns truly are. One of the most significant influences on sleep timing is chronotype. A chronotype is a person's natural tendency to feel alert at certain times of day and sleepy at others. Some people naturally wake early and feel energetic in the morning, while others come alive in the evening and prefer to sleep later. Most people fall somewhere between these extremes, but the full spectrum is much broader than many realize. Chronotypes are heavily influenced by biology and tend to remain relatively stable across long periods of life, although they do shift at certain stages. An early chronotype is not more disciplined than a late chronotype, and a late chronotype is not more relaxed or careless. These patterns are built into the body's internal timing system and reflect underlying differences in how the brain and hormones regulate alertness. Genetics play a strong role in determining chronotype. Variations in specific genes influence how quickly the internal clock runs. Some clocks run slightly faster, pushing people toward earlier sleep and wake times. Others run slightly slower, nudging sleep later into the night. These differences may seem small on paper, but even a slight change in timing can dramatically affect when alertness peaks and when fatigue sets in. Research has identified families in which members naturally wake before dawn, and others in which members naturally feel awake late into the night. These patterns follow genetic lines just as eye color or height might. For people with strong biological tendencies toward early or late schedules, forcing a different pattern can feel almost impossible, because it goes against the rhythm programmed into their cells. Sleep duration also varies naturally. While 7 to 8 hours is often mentioned as a general guideline, some people function best with slightly more, and others truly feel rested with slightly less. The body's need for sleep is influenced by metabolism, brain structure, and even immune activity. These needs can shift with work demands, emotional experiences, or physical health. A person requiring 9 hours is no less healthy than someone needing 7. Sleep need is an individual trait, shaped by biology rather than preference. The environment also plays a powerful role in shaping sleep. Light exposure influences the internal clock more strongly than any other external cue. Bright natural light in the morning helps stabilize the internal rhythm, signaling the brain that the day has begun. In contrast, artificial light in the evening can delay the body's release of melatonin, making it harder to fall asleep. People who spend more time outdoors during the day often find that their sleep stabilizes. People who work indoors or at night, or who live in environments with long periods of darkness or extended daylight, naturally develop different sleep patterns. Even small differences in daily routines, such as morning commutes or evening social habits, can shift sleep timing over time. Lifestyle plays an equally significant role. Work schedules often override natural chronotypes, especially in modern settings. Someone who naturally sleeps late may be required to wake early for school or employment, creating a constant mismatch between biological rhythm and daily responsibility. This mismatch can lead to ongoing fatigue, not because the person is sleeping too little, but because they are sleeping at the wrong time for their internal clock. People whose schedules align more closely with their chronotype tend to feel more rested, even if their total hours of sleep are similar. Cultural norms also shape sleep. In some cultures, short daytime naps are normal and even encouraged. In others, napping is seen as a sign of laziness. Some societies naturally organize evening meals late at night, while others eat much earlier. These practices influence sleep timing by adjusting when the body expects to rest or digest food. Even shared social rhythms, such as late-night entertainment or early morning labor, create expectations that influence individual sleep behavior. The cultural environment can either support or challenge a person's natural rhythm, making it easier or harder to maintain healthy sleep. Age creates some of the most dramatic shifts in sleep patterns. Adolescents, for example, experience a biological change that naturally pushes their sleep schedule later. This shift is not behavioral or attitude-based. It is a real biological adjustment in the timing of melatonin release. Teenagers naturally feel sleepy later at night and naturally wake later in the morning. This pattern was once advantageous for early human groups, allowing different ages to stay alert at different times. Even today the pattern persists, but modern school schedules often conflict with adolescent biology. This mismatch leads many teenagers to feel chronically tired, even if they are trying to follow recommended guidelines. In early adulthood, sleep timing often shifts slightly earlier, although individual variation remains wide. Young adults with flexible schedules may follow their preferred rhythms more easily, while others may need to adjust their habits based on work or childcare demands. As adulthood continues, sleep often stabilizes into a pattern that reflects both biological preference and life circumstances. As people reach older age, sleep tends to shift earlier again. Many older adults find themselves waking earlier in the morning or becoming sleepy sooner at night. This change reflects alterations in the internal clock, reduced melatonin production, and changes in how the brain responds to light. Older adults may also experience more fragmented sleep, with lighter stages becoming more frequent. Although these changes are normal, they can feel surprising to those who once maintained a different rhythm. It is important to recognize that there is a wide normal range for human sleep behaviors. Some people feel most alert at dawn, while others find their energy peaks in the evening. Some thrive on structured schedules, while others do better with flexibility. Sleep differs not only between individuals, but also within individuals across the lifespan. There is no perfect pattern that fits everyone. Instead, sleep reflects a combination of biology, environment, age, and personal experience. Understanding these differences can reduce the pressure to conform to a specific schedule. Sleep is not a measure of discipline or character. It is a biological process shaped by many factors, most of which are outside of personal control. Accepting that variation is normal can help people listen more closely to their own needs, adjusting their routines in ways that support their natural rhythm rather than fighting against it. Even within the same family, sleep patterns can differ widely. One person may fall asleep easily at 9 in the evening, while another feels naturally awake until midnight. These differences are not signs of incompatibility or unhealthy behavior. They simply reflect differing internal clocks. When people understand their own patterns, they can structure their day in ways that support them, improving mood, energy, and overall well-being. Modern environments sometimes make it difficult to follow one's natural chronotype. Artificial lighting, screen use, and irregular schedules can push the internal clock in one direction or another. But even within these constraints, small adjustments can help align sleep more closely with the body's natural preferences. Morning light exposure, consistent routines, and reduced evening light can gently shift the internal rhythm. These changes do not force the clock into a new pattern. Instead, they support the clock in functioning more efficiently. The diversity of human sleep exists because humans themselves are diverse. Throughout history, this variation may have been beneficial. Groups with different sleep patterns would have had individuals alert at different hours, increasing safety and resilience. In modern life, the same variation continues, not as an inconvenience, but as a reflection of the many ways human biology adapts to the world. Sleep differences are not problems to be fixed. They are natural rhythms to be understood. When people recognize the uniqueness of their sleep patterns and the reasons behind them, they can build healthier relationships with rest. Instead of comparing themselves to others, they can focus on understanding their own needs, respecting their internal rhythm, and recognizing that there is no single best way to sleep. Sleep in the animal kingdom is one of the most fascinating demonstrations of how life adapts to survive. Even though sleep makes animals vulnerable, evolution has protected it across almost every branch of life. This persistence tells us something important. Whatever sleep is doing, it is essential. From creatures that drift through the ocean to birds soaring thousands of miles, from tiny insects to the largest mammals on Earth, every species has found its own way of balancing the need for rest with the demands of staying alive. Some do it by sleeping deeply, others by sleeping lightly, and some by sleeping one half of the brain at a time. The variety is extraordinary, yet all these strategies carry the same message. Sleep is too important to abandon. Many animals sleep in ways that look nothing like the quiet stillness familiar to humans. Some birds sleep while perched on a narrow branch, performing a balancing act that seems impossible. Marine mammals sleep at the surface of the ocean, breathing rhythmically without waking. Others rest in short bursts, scattered across the day and night. Some species sleep so little that scientists wonder how they remain functional, while others sleep so deeply and for such long periods that waking seems like the rare event. The sheer diversity invites a closer look at how evolution has shaped sleep to fit the needs of different environments. One of the most remarkable adaptations is unihemispheric sleep, a strategy used by certain birds and marine mammals. In unihemispheric sleep, only one half of the brain sleeps at a time, while the other half stays awake enough to monitor the surroundings. This ability solves one of the central problems of sleep in the wild: vulnerability. A sleeping animal risks missing signs of danger. For species that need to stay alert in unpredictable environments, sleeping with half of the brain allows for rest without complete disconnection from the world. When one hemisphere sleeps, the eye on that side closes, while the opposite eye remains open and alert. Dolphins and some other marine mammals rely on this strategy because they must continue to surface for air even while resting. If their entire brain fell asleep, their breathing would stop. Unihemispheric sleep allows them to maintain vital functions without sacrificing rest. They drift gently, one half of their brain resting while the other half monitors movement and respiration. After a period of time, the roles switch, and the resting hemisphere wakes as the other settles into sleep. Birds use unihemispheric sleep for different reasons. Migratory birds often travel long distances over oceans where landing is impossible. Some species have been observed sleeping while flying, resting one hemisphere at a time during extended journeys. Even birds resting in flocks use this adaptation. Those on the outer edges of the group sleep with the hemisphere facing inward, keeping the other half awake to watch for predators. Birds in the centre of the flock can safely sleep with both hemispheres at once. This flexible system allows each bird to adjust its sleep depending on risk. The amount of sleep needed varies dramatically across species. Some animals sleep far more than humans. Brown bats, for example, spend nearly 20 hours a day in sleep. Their lifestyle requires large amounts of rest, likely connected to their energy-saving strategy and the need to conserve heat in dark roosts. By contrast, giraffes sleep only a few hours a day in short, scattered bursts. Their size makes lying down risky, and their height makes them highly visible to predators. Sleeping in brief intervals reduces danger while still offering enough rest to function. Predators and prey often have opposite relationships with sleep. Many predators, such as lions, sleep for long periods because they can afford to. They have fewer natural enemies, and their hunting strategy involves bursts of intense energy, followed by periods of rest. Prey animals, on the other hand, must remain vigilant. They tend to sleep lightly, waking frequently to check their surroundings. Deer, horses, and other herd animals often sleep standing up, allowing quick flight if danger approaches. Migratory animals face unique challenges. Some birds travel thousands of miles without stopping, requiring sleep strategies that balance movement and rest. Frigate birds, for example, can soar over oceans for weeks. They take extremely short bouts of sleep, often lasting only seconds, while maintaining enough awareness to navigate and avoid collisions. Their brains alternate between hemispheres during these micro-sleeps, allowing them to rest in the air without losing control. Marine animals that dive to great depths also show fascinating variations. Sperm whales, for instance, enter deep sleep in a vertical position, floating motionless near the surface like tall pillars. These brief but profound rest periods appear to sustain them despite their demanding lifestyle. Fur seals offer another example of adaptability. When they are on land, they sleep much like terrestrial mammals, with both hemispheres resting. But when they return to the sea, they switch to unihemispheric sleep, adjusting their behavior depending on their environment. Insects display their own versions of sleep, even though their brains differ greatly from those of mammals and birds. Bees enter a state similar to sleep, becoming less responsive and adopting characteristic resting postures. This rest is essential for memory and navigation. Bees that do not sleep show impaired ability to locate flowers or communicate with their hive. Fruit flies also sleep, and their sleep patterns are influenced by many of the same molecules that regulate sleep in humans, suggesting that the roots of sleep stretch deep into evolutionary history. Reptiles and amphibians show simple but meaningful forms of sleep-like states. Lizards pass through distinct rest periods with changes in brain activity that resemble light sleep and deeper rest. Frogs and other amphibians may reduce their responsiveness during rest. Although their sleep patterns can be influenced by temperature and environmental conditions, these states may not match human definitions of sleep exactly, but they serve similar functions, offering restoration and protection for the organism. Fish appear to sleep as well, though without eyelids to close. Many fish enter a state of reduced activity, hovering motionless or settling into hidden crevices. Their responsiveness to the environment decreases, and internal processes change in ways consistent with sleep. Even species that must continually move to breathe, such as some sharks, may rest portions of their brain while maintaining slow, steady motion. These adaptations reveal how flexible sleep can be while still fulfilling essential functions. Across all these examples, one theme repeats. Sleep exists in nearly every form of complex life, suggesting it offers benefits that cannot be replaced by any other biological process. Despite the vulnerabilities sleep creates, evolution has preserved it. Even animals under constant threat cannot simply abandon sleep. Instead, they adjust it, shape it, and reinvent it in ways that support survival. The persistence of sleep shows that rest is not a luxury but a necessity. It helps regulate energy, restore the body, strengthen memory, process emotion, and maintain health. Animals that sleep deeply, animals that sleep lightly, animals that sleep with one half of the brain at a time, and animals that sleep while drifting, soaring, or floating, all reveal the same underlying truth. Sleep is fundamental to life. By observing sleep across the animal kingdom, human sleep becomes easier to understand. The structure of human sleep is just one version of a universal biological need expressed in countless ways across Earth's species. This broader perspective highlights sleep as a natural and essential rhythm shared by creatures of every size and shape. It connects human experience to the ancient patterns of life, showing that the simple act of resting is part of a story far larger than any single species. Sleep, for all its elegance and natural rhythm, does not always arrive easily. Even though the body is designed to follow a nightly cycle of rest and restoration, there are times when sleep feels out of reach. Moments of wakefulness stretch longer than expected, thoughts drift in circles, or the night feels lighter than it should. These experiences are far more common than people often realize. The sleep system is powerful, but it is also sensitive to timing, emotion, environment, and daily habits. When these factors shift, sleep may become elusive for a while. Understanding why these disruptions occur can provide reassurance, especially when it feels as though the body is forgetting how to rest. Difficulty falling asleep is one of the most familiar experiences. It may begin with a simple sense of being slightly too alert at bedtime. A thought lingers, an emotion feels unfinished, or the body resists settling. Sometimes the reason is clear, such as an unusually busy day or a late evening activity that pushed the internal clock forward. Other times the reason feels invisible. Even without obvious triggers, the circadian system can drift, causing sleepiness to appear at a later hour than expected. This drift does not reflect a problem with the body. It is simply part of the natural flexibility built into the sleep system. The circadian rhythm which guides sleep timing is continuously shaped by light exposure, behavior, and internal chemistry. When light patterns shift, such as spending more time indoors or using bright screens in the evening, the internal clock may move slightly later. This can make bedtime feel mistimed, as though the body is not yet ready to let go of the day. A later rise time can reinforce this shift, creating a gentle cycle in which sleepiness arrives later and waking time drifts forward. Circadian rhythms can move in both directions, and these changes are normal adjustments rather than signs of dysfunction. Stress often plays a significant role in making sleep difficult. When the mind carries concerns or unresolved thoughts, the brain remains slightly more alert than usual. The systems responsible for readiness and emotional response stay active, even as the body attempts to transition into rest. This can make falling asleep feel like trying to quiet a conversation that continues just beyond hearing. Stress-related wakefulness is not a failure of relaxation. It is the natural consequence of the brain protecting you by staying alert to potential challenges. Once those challenges feel resolved or distant, the brain eases its grip, allowing sleep to arrive more smoothly. Nighttime awakenings can also occur during periods of emotional strain or change. Even a subtle shift in mood or routine can make sleep lighter. The sleeping brain is designed to respond to internal and external signals, and when the nervous system is slightly more active than usual, brief awakenings become more common. These awakenings are rarely harmful. Many people fall back asleep without remembering them. But during times of stress, the mind may latch onto a thought, making it harder to return to sleep. This difficulty does not imply that something is wrong with the sleep mechanism. It simply reflects the mind's temporary sensitivity. Irregular schedules can also disrupt sleep. When sleep and wake times vary widely from day to day, the internal clock receives mixed signals. This can make the body feel unsure about when to prepare for rest. Modern life often demands flexibility, with shifting work hours, social events, or travel. Each shift nudges the circadian rhythm in a new direction. Over time, this can create a feeling of sleeping at odds with one's own body. Yet the sleep system is adaptable. With consistent cues such as morning light or regular routines, the internal rhythm gradually finds stability again. Some people experience light or fragmented sleep during transitions in life. Moving to a new home, beginning a new job, caring for a newborn, or even shifting seasons can subtly influence the quality of sleep. When the environment changes, the brain becomes more alert, evaluating new sounds, lights, or spaces. This alertness fades with familiarity as the brain learns the environment is safe. Sleep becomes deeper again once the new surroundings no longer require monitoring. There are also times when sleep is disrupted for reasons that cannot easily be identified. These periods may come and go, lasting a few nights or stretching longer. During these times, it is common to worry about sleep itself, creating a loop in which concern leads to wakefulness, and wakefulness increases concern. The mind tries to help by paying closer attention, but this attention can accidentally prolong the difficulty. It is helpful to remember that the sleep system has built-in resilience. Even when sleep feels inconsistent, the underlying mechanisms continue to function, waiting for conditions to align again. Dreams can influence sleep quality as well. Vivid dreams, emotional dreams, or dreams that arise during lighter stages of sleep can lead to brief awakenings. These are natural parts of the nightly cycle. They become more noticeable during periods of emotional processing or increased stress. Because REM sleep intensifies emotional themes, the mind may enter dream states with strong feelings. When these dreams lead to waking, it may take a moment to settle again. The dreaming system is not malfunctioning. It is responding to the emotional landscape of the moment. Travel introduces yet another form of sleep disruption. Crossing time zones creates a mismatch between the internal clock and the external environment. The body continues to follow its original rhythm, even though the world outside signals a new time. This temporary misalignment can lead to early awakenings, insomnia, or daytime sleepiness. The internal clock gradually adjusts using light exposure and daily routines as anchors. While the adjustment can take several days, the body's built-in timing system naturally resets itself without permanent effects. Even changes in temperature, noise, bedding, or diet can temporarily affect sleep. A room that is slightly too warm or too cold may cause lighter sleep. Unfamiliar sounds can prompt brief awakenings. A late meal may alter digestion enough to make settling into sleep feel slower. These influences do not indicate a fragile system. They reflect the sleep system's sensitivity, which exists to protect the body. The brain remains attuned to the environment at all times, adjusting sleep depth to maintain safety. Different stages of life come with their own challenges. Young adults may experience irregular schedules due to social or academic demands. Middle-aged adults may face stress from work or family responsibilities, which can influence sleep. Older adults may wake more frequently as deep sleep naturally decreases with age. These changes are normal and do not reflect poor sleep habits. The body adapts across the lifespan, reshaping sleep to match changing needs. It is also common to experience occasional nights where sleep simply refuses to come, even without a clear reason. These nights can feel unsettling, but they rarely indicate anything harmful. The body compensates naturally, often producing deeper sleep the following night. The sleep system self-corrects, even when it feels temporarily disrupted. Across all these situations, one message is important. Difficulty sleeping does not mean the body has lost the ability to sleep. The mechanisms that govern rest are durable and self-regulating. They may be influenced by timing, stress, environment, or daily rhythms, but they do not break easily. Sleep returns when conditions become favorable again. Reassurance is essential when sleep becomes difficult. The body is not fragile. The sleep system does not disappear just because it has been interrupted. Even when the night feels long, the underlying processes continue working quietly. The internal clock continues to signal timing. The brain continues to cycle through stages. The body continues attempting to settle. When stress decreases or conditions shift, sleep rebalances itself. Occasional difficulty sleeping is part of being human. It reflects the mind's sensitivity, the body's adaptability, and the complexity of daily life. Sleep does not demand perfection. It asks only for the chance to unfold naturally. And when given that chance, the body finds its way back to rest with remarkable reliability. Sleep research is moving into a new era, one where scientists can peer into the sleeping brain with unprecedented clarity. For most of human history, sleep was treated as a mystery, a nightly plunge into invisibility. Even early scientific tools offered only rough outlines, showing whether someone was awake or asleep, but not revealing much about what the brain was actually doing. Today, however, advances in neuroscience, imaging technology, and computational modeling are transforming the field. Researchers can observe patterns that once remained hidden, track fluid movements through the brain, decode fragments of dream imagery, and study how memory reshapes itself during rest. The frontier of sleep research is opening into a landscape filled with discoveries, questions, and possibilities. One of the most exciting developments is the improvement of brain imaging techniques. Traditional tools such as electroencephalography provide valuable information about electrical activity, but newer methods offer far more detailed views. High-resolution functional imaging can reveal which networks activate during various sleep stages. Scientists can watch as different regions communicate with one another, forming distinctive circuits that support dreaming, memory consolidation, and restorative processes. These technologies have shown that the sleeping brain is not quiet or inactive. It is rich with activity, filled with patterns that shift in elegant and precise ways. Dream research, once limited to diaries and personal reports, has expanded dramatically thanks to these imaging tools. While scientists cannot yet read full dreams from brain activity, they can identify when visual imagery is forming, when emotional content is high, and when certain categories of memories are being reactivated. Some studies have shown correlations between patterns of neural activity and the presence of faces, places, or motion in dreams. Although these findings do not decode dreams entirely, they give a glimpse into the brain's internal theatre, showing that dreams are deeply tied to real sensory and emotional pathways. The study of memory replay has also advanced significantly. Using detailed measurements of neural firing, researchers have observed the brain replaying sequences of activity that mirror waking experiences. In animals, these replay events can be measured with extraordinary precision. A rat exploring a path during the day will show the same pattern of neural firing during sleep, sometimes even at accelerated speeds. These replays help consolidate the memory, transferring it from temporary storage to long-term networks. In humans, researchers use imaging tools to identify similar replay behavior. Although the human brain is more complex, the same principle appears to hold. Memories are rehearsed during sleep, strengthening their neural connections and linking them to broader networks. Another area of rapid progress involves the glymphatic system, which is responsible for clearing metabolic waste from the brain. This system becomes particularly active during deep sleep. New imaging techniques allow researchers to watch cerebrospinal fluid flow through the brain's channels, washing away waste products that build up during wakefulness. This discovery is relatively recent and has sparked a large surge of interest. It raises important questions about how sleep contributes to long-term brain health and how disruptions to sleep might influence cognitive decline. The ability to observe these processes directly is transforming understanding of the relationship between sleep and neurological well-being. Research into consciousness is also finding new ground in sleep science. Sleep provides a natural way to study how awareness changes, fades, and returns. By observing transitions between wakefulness, light sleep, deep sleep, and REM, scientists are developing new theories about what consciousness requires. These transitions show how cognitive processes can switch modes, how awareness can narrow or broaden, and how the brain maintains continuity even during unconscious periods. Sleep has become a valuable window into the mechanics of consciousness, offering clues that may eventually help scientists understand how the mind constructs reality. Technology is reshaping sleep research in other ways as well. Portable sleep trackers, once limited and imprecise, have improved to the point where they can provide meaningful information about sleep stages, heart rate variations, and nightly patterns. Although these devices cannot match the precision of laboratory equipment, they allow researchers to gather data from large populations. This real-world information helps scientists understand how everyday life affects sleep, revealing patterns across age, lifestyle, environment, and culture. The expansion of data from home environments is giving sleep science broader reach than ever before. Computational models have become essential tools in understanding sleep architecture. By simulating the behavior of thousands of neurons, researchers can observe how sleep stages emerge from the interactions of countless individual cells. These models help explain why sleep cycles follow their characteristic patterns, how transitions between stages occur, and why certain disturbances affect sleep more strongly than others. As computing power increases, models grow more detailed, bringing clarity to processes that were once too complex to study directly. Another frontier involves the study of sleep across species. New methods allow scientists to monitor sleep in animals that are difficult to study in laboratory settings, such as migratory birds, marine mammals, and free-roaming wildlife. Portable neural sensors and lightweight tracking devices make it possible to follow these animals through their natural environments. This research reveals how sleep evolved, how it responds to ecological pressures, and which features are shared across distant species. By comparing sleep in such diverse animals, researchers gain insight into which aspects of sleep are universal and which are specialized adaptations. Unanswered questions remain vast and compelling. For example, scientists still do not know exactly why different stages of sleep emerged or how they first evolved. It remains unclear how dreams relate to consciousness, or why the brain chooses certain memories to replay while ignoring others. The exact relationship between sleep and emotional processing is still being explored. Researchers continue to refine their understanding of how sleep deprivation affects long-term health, and they are investigating how biological rhythms interact with modern environments filled with artificial light and irregular schedules. Another major area of investigation involves individual variation. Why do some people need more sleep than others? Why do some individuals dream vividly while others rarely remember dreams? How do genetics influence sleep timing and quality? New research is beginning to uncover genetic markers associated with chronotypes, but the full picture is still emerging. Understanding these differences could transform how society views sleep, shifting the focus from a one-size-fits-all model to one that recognizes natural variation. Scientists are also exploring how sleep changes throughout life and what these changes reveal about the developing and aging brain. Children experience abundant deep sleep and REM sleep, supporting rapid growth and learning. Sleep becomes more stable in adulthood, then gradually shifts toward lighter stages in older age. Researchers are studying what these changes mean for memory, emotional processing, and brain health across the lifespan. With improved imaging tools, they can track structural and functional changes in remarkable detail. The study of dreams continues to raise deep questions. Although science can identify the neural signatures of dreaming, the meaning and purpose of dreams remain subjects of debate. Researchers are investigating whether dreams influence creativity, whether they strengthen emotional resilience, and how they contribute to cognitive flexibility. While these questions are complex, each new study adds pieces to the puzzle, bringing dream science closer to understanding its mysteries. As the field advances, sleep research is also exploring connections to other areas of science. Neuroscience, psychology, physiology, engineering, and computational modeling are all contributing to a more complete understanding. These collaborations help uncover how sleep interacts with everything from immune function to metabolism to emotional health. By studying sleep in this interdisciplinary way, scientists are building a more holistic view of what it means to be a living organism dependent on rest. Despite all these advances, sleep remains partly mysterious. Its full purpose is not yet known, and its inner workings continue to surprise researchers. But each year brings new discoveries that deepen understanding and illuminate the remarkable processes happening each night. Far from being a passive state, sleep is emerging as one of the most dynamic and essential aspects of life. The frontier of sleep research is expanding rapidly, offering a glimpse into a world that was once hidden. It shows that sleep is not just a nightly routine, but a complex, evolving field of science that continues to unfold. Through new tools, new insights, and new questions, researchers are uncovering the secrets of sleep piece by piece, revealing just how extraordinary this familiar part of life truly is. Each night, as sleep pulls you inward, consciousness begins to loosen its grip. Thoughts unravel, the sense of self softens, and awareness dims until it becomes something entirely different from daytime experience. This quiet transformation does not happen all at once. It unfolds in layers, revealing the remarkable flexibility of the human mind. Sleep offers a unique glimpse into the nature of consciousness, not by expanding it, but by temporarily dissolving it. Through this nightly journey, the brain shows how awareness can flicker, shift, fade, and return, carrying the self along with it. At the beginning of sleep, consciousness does not vanish. It drifts. Thoughts lose structure, becoming softer around the edges. The mind slips into imagery that is neither fully imagined nor fully controlled. This drifting period allows consciousness to loosen from its usual anchors of intention, identity, and focused attention. There is still a faint sense of self, a quiet observer noticing the transition. But as the brain enters deeper stages, the observer dissolves. The self becomes less distinct, blending into a more passive form of awareness. During light sleep, awareness thins, but does not disappear entirely. Sounds may filter in, vague sensations remain, and occasional thoughts drift through, although they no longer feel tied to deliberate decision-making. This stage reflects a partial departure from conscious experience. The mind steps back, but does not vanish, creating a twilight zone where consciousness is present in fragmentary form. As sleep deepens, consciousness changes more dramatically. In slow-wave sleep, awareness fades to its lowest point. The sense of self, so familiar during the day, recedes entirely. There is no inner narrator, no observer, no feeling of I. The brain continues its work, restoring tissues, consolidating memories, and clearing waste. But the conscious mind is absent. In many ways, this stage reveals how much of the brain's functioning does not require consciousness at all. The vast machinery of life continues quietly, keeping the body alive and the mind healthy without the need for deliberate awareness. Deep sleep invites reflection on what consciousness truly is. If the self can vanish so completely, yet the body remains alive and the brain active, then consciousness must be a delicate dynamic pattern rather than a constant substance. It is something the brain creates rather than something the brain contains. Sleep demonstrates this with clarity. Every night the self dissolves without fear, without resistance, and without any lingering sense of loss. This effortless disappearance suggests that consciousness is not a fixed entity, but a temporary arrangement of awareness, experience, and memory. When the brain transitions toward dreaming, consciousness resurfaces, but in an altered form. Dreaming consciousness is vivid, emotional, and immersive. It feels real while it is happening, even though logic weakens and the sense of identity becomes fluid. In dreams, the self can shift shape, experience impossible events, and move through worlds unbound by physical laws. The dreaming mind creates landscapes, characters, and stories using the same neural pathways that construct waking reality. Yet something is missing. The dreamer rarely questions the strangeness of the dream. The sense of awareness is present, but insight is dimmed. Dreaming reveals another layer of consciousness. It shows that awareness does not require full self-reflection. A dreamer experiences sensations, emotions, and narratives without the sharp clarity of waking understanding. This suggests that consciousness exists on a spectrum, with dreaming occupying an intermediate place between wakefulness and deep sleep. It is awareness without analysis, identity without consistency, experience without the grounding of external reality. During dreams, the self becomes flexible. One moment you feel entirely yourself, the next moment the boundary softens and identity shifts into something symbolic or abstract. This fluidity offers clues about how the brain constructs a sense of self during wakefulness. Identity may feel stable during the day, but it is built from memories, emotions, and sensory impressions that can be reassembled in many different ways. Dreams reveal this flexibility, demonstrating that the self is not a rigid structure, but a constantly updated model the brain maintains. The dissolution of self in dreams is gentle rather than frightening. Even the most unusual dream worlds feel natural while unfolding. This calm acceptance suggests that the brain is capable of experiencing consciousness without the constraints that define waking life. It also shows that awareness can operate without full access to memory or logic. This adaptability raises profound questions about what consciousness actually requires and why the brain constructs it in such complex layers. Between dreams and deep sleep, consciousness sometimes flickers. Brief moments of awareness emerge, often too short to recall. These micro-awakenings may feel like nothing at all, but they reflect the brain testing the boundary between unconsciousness and wakefulness. The transition zones between stages highlight how narrow the threshold of awareness can be. It takes only subtle changes in brain activity to move from deep unconsciousness to partial awareness and then back again. Upon waking, consciousness returns with surprising speed. In a matter of seconds, the self reassembles. Memories return, orientation snaps into place, and the mind becomes aware that it has woken from sleep. This reconstruction of identity happens so quickly that it rarely draws attention, yet it is one of the most remarkable feats the brain performs. The mind must retrieve a coherent sense of who you are, where you are, and what has happened recently. The fact that this reconstruction feels smooth suggests that the brain stores the sense of self as a flexible template, ready to be restored whenever wakefulness returns. The moment of waking reveals another insight. Consciousness may feel continuous across days, yet it breaks every night. The self disappears, awareness transforms, and memories pause. Then, upon waking, the mind continues as if the break never occurred. This illusion of continuity shows how strongly the brain weaves experience into a storyline. Sleep exposes the seams in that narrative. It shows the gaps between chapters. It reminds us that the self is not something unbroken, but something the brain renews daily. Dreams also explore the boundary between consciousness and imagination. In dreams, the brain constructs full sensory world without input from the outside world. This ability suggests that consciousness is not solely built from perception. It is capable of generating its own internal reality, complete with emotion and meaning. These internal realities feel genuine while they unfold, revealing how the brain uses the same tools to generate both waking and dreaming experience. The line between perception and imagination becomes thinner than it seems. Some researchers view dreaming as a laboratory for consciousness. It allows the mind to experiment with identity, emotion, and experience without the constraints of physical reality. The dream world shows how easily the brain can alter the rules of awareness. Yet even in dreams, there remains a thread of continuity. A sense of I appears, even if its shape shifts. That thread suggests that consciousness may arise from the brain's attempt to organize experience into a coherent perspective, whether awake or dreaming. Deep sleep, however, shows the opposite extreme. Consciousness can vanish entirely, and yet the brain continues its essential functions. This raises questions about how consciousness emerges in the first place. If the brain can operate without awareness, then awareness must serve a specific purpose rather than being an automatic feature. Sleep hints that consciousness may be the brain's tool for navigating complex environments, making decisions and understanding the world. When these tasks are unnecessary, consciousness is temporarily suspended, saving energy and allowing deeper restoration. In this way, sleep provides a nightly demonstration of the layered nature of consciousness. Wakefulness brings full awareness. Dreaming introduces altered awareness. Deep sleep removes awareness entirely. Waking gathers these layers back into a cohesive sense of self. This cycle repeats night after night, reminding us that consciousness is not static. It is dynamic, fragile, resilient, and deeply intertwined with the structure of the brain. Sleep is not simply the absence of consciousness. It is a journey through its many shapes. It reveals how awareness dissolves and reforms, how identity shifts and returns, and how the mind travels through states that are both familiar and mysterious. By the time morning arrives, the self has been quietly reconstructed from the fragments left behind. The new day begins with a fresh sense of continuity, even though consciousness has gone through a complete cycle of disappearance and rebirth. This nightly rhythm invites reflection. It suggests that consciousness is an ongoing creation, not a fixed possession. Sleep offers a glimpse of the mind's complexity, showing that awareness is only one part of a larger system. Each night the self dissolves into darkness, only to rise again with the dawn, renewed, reassembled, and ready to face the waking world. Each night, long before the mind becomes aware of it, the body begins its quiet preparation for sleep. Signals shift, rhythms soften, and the wide landscape of wakefulness narrows into something calmer and more contained. By the time the eyes close, an entire constellation of processes has already moved into place, guiding you gently into the first moments of rest. From there, the night unfolds in organized stages, each one carrying its own purpose, its own form of care. Light sleep settles the mind. Deep sleep restores and strengthens. Dreaming offers a space where memories, emotions, and imagination can be sifted and reshaped. All of it happens without effort, without conscious direction, and without the need for control. The journey through sleep is not a straight line, but a repeating cycle, one that shifts gradually as the night continues. Early on, deep sleep takes the lead, supporting the body's physical renewal. Later, dreaming becomes more prominent, allowing the mind to explore and reorganize its inner landscape. These shifts happen naturally, carried out by systems that have evolved over countless generations. There is no need to guide them or monitor them. They've always known what to do. Across these cycles, the brain reduces what is no longer needed, strengthens what is important, and allows emotional intensity to settle into something steadier. The body takes its own time to repair tissues, rebalance hormones, and restore energy reserves. Breathing adjusts, temperature gently drops, and muscles release the tension that accumulated throughout the day. Sleep offers a kind of internal housekeeping, ensuring that the next day begins from a place of stability rather than strain. Even the moments that seem mysterious, like dreaming, serve their own quiet roles. Whether dreams are weaving memory fragments together, helping the mind process emotions, or simply reflecting the background activity of an active brain at rest, they remind us that the sleeping mind is anything but empty. Scenes form, dissolve, and reform in ways that waking life never allows, yet they often leave behind a subtle trace of clarity or calm. Dreams show how deeply the mind continues to work even when awareness is set aside. Sleep also reveals something important about the nature of the self. Each night, awareness fades, identity loosens, and consciousness takes on shapes that differ from one stage to the next. Yet every morning, the sense of who you are returns seamlessly, as though it had never paused at all. This effortless reconstruction is one of the quiet wonders of the human brain. It brings back memory, orientation, and perspective in the span of a few seconds, allowing you to continue your life story without noticing the hours when consciousness stepped away. Sleep demonstrates how flexible, resilient, and beautifully adaptive the mind can be. What makes this nightly process so extraordinary is that none of it requires deliberate thought. You do not have to choose to regulate your heartbeat, adjust hormone levels, or sort through memories. You do not have to decide when to lighten sleep or when to move into deeper stages. The body carries out these steps with precision, shaped by evolution and refined through experience. It is one of biology's most elegant systems, quietly supporting everything you think, feel, and do. As the night's journey comes to an end, the body prepares to return to wakefulness. Breathing shifts again, temperature rises slightly, and the brain begins to reconnect the threads of awareness. Eventually, the eyes open, and the world returns. Another cycle has completed itself, restoring the strength and clarity needed to move into the new day. This transition can feel ordinary, but it is the result of hours of careful, coordinated work happening beneath the surface. Reflecting on this process can bring a sense of calm, especially before bed. Sleep is not a task to accomplish, or a problem to solve. It is a natural rhythm carried out by systems that have been with you since birth. Each night offers a chance for renewal, for quiet repair, and for steadying the mind. Simply allowing yourself to settle, breathe, and release the day invites those systems to do what they have always done. As you rest now or prepare to drift towards sleep, it can be comforting to remember how much is happening on your behalf. Your body knows the way, your mind knows how to let go, and night after night sleep continues its gentle work, supporting you in ways that stretch far beyond awareness. For a moment, all that is needed is stillness and trust. The rest will unfold naturally, just as it has countless times before.